reporter, just mark it as the next exhibit number, whatever in the hundreds that is, and we'll take care of this today. I don't want to waste your time, folks, while we do this, but it's very important that we do it. All right. All right, so there was any objection to that from the Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin, this is the time or the scene that you told us about when you heard the statement that you attributed to my client, correct?
Sorry, say that again?
Sure. This is a moment in time. It captures a moment in time when you're standing there. To your right is Karen Reed, which you've described. To your left is a civilian female, which you've described. And across from you is an officer, which you've also described.
Okay, now I see why this mini Wi-Fi camera has been trending online lately. This thing is...
Yes.
So this would be the time or close in time to the time that you heard the statement that you attribute to Ms. Reed, correct?
Yes.
The first time you ever made that official report, or an official report to law enforcement regarding that statement was January 30th, 2022, correct?
Well, yes and no. The statement was made in front of the police officer, so that would technically be the first time that statement was made to a police officer in my presence. And then, yes, I testified to it on January 30th, as you said.
You said it on January 30th. You weren't testifying under those, correct?
Okay. Said it.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh man, we're live. We've got we got the dream team here. We got my buddy Mazza Media, and we got super criminal defense attorney from New York City, Mark Bederow back. What's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Good evening. We're excited to be here. I'm extremely fired up tonight, so I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do this little dance and recap today and give thoughts and opinions.
Yeah, it was something to see today, right from the beginning, wasn't it?
I couldn't wait for today to start.
And it lived up to it, especially what we're playing right now, the Katie McLaughlin.
That was something else.
What do you want to say about that, Attorney Bederow?
Well, she was, what's the Shakespeare quote I said earlier? The lady doth protest too much, methinks. Really splitting hairs on things that I think a truthful, credible witness who didn't come armed to battle wouldn't do. So, we're talking about really educating people on the difference between an acquaintance and a friend.
Seriously. Why not just say she was a friend in high school? I mean, what is the problem? Because you're so defensive makes us very suspicious.
I mean, it's the first note I wrote down was just that's horrible. I mean, it just looks like you're picking for a fight. She's wrenched up and ready to argue over that. They're not Facebook acquaintances. They're Facebook friends. They send each other money. They hang out on the beach together. They do all kinds of things. They're friends. It's okay. You're not going to tank. Well, first of all, there's not much of a case to tank anyway, but assuming what there is of it, you're not going to tank it by saying, yeah, you know what? I know her. I mean, at this point, what's the harm? I mean, it seems to me that it's clear that Canton is an incestuous town anyway, based on everybody seems to know everyone. I mean, it's kind of crazy. So what's one more? It's a coincidence, or at least that's the way she could have portrayed it. But, she fought about that. And she also used one word, which I think also changed the dynamic of just saying, do you know Caitlin Albert? And what did she say? I know a Caitlin Albert, which again, it's the same concept of friend versus acquaintance. She's coming down. She's looking for a fight. And then you look at her body language. And this is why it was so important to make sure the jurors could see. And if you remember when the defense, they switched courtrooms, they took the little tiny, horrible courtroom so the jurors could see. And if what you saw today was a lot of looking down, a lot of shiftiness, fidgetiness, some of that could be nerves, but those are also tells for someone who may be not confident in what they're saying because it may not be truthful, or it may be fudged a little bit. So I thought her demeanor, was very poor. She fought Jackson. I thought she looked away. She's splitting hairs on things that don't require hairs to be split. And then, of course, he essentially bullied her into saying that my story evolved. Now, I actually thought that that question could have been objected to, but, you know, the law of the jungle, they didn't object. It's in the record, and that's now the evidence. And you can be sure they'll go to town in that in summation, that the evidence is that she admitted that her story evolved. So I don't think this went well for them. I think a little bit, unfortunately, they were hampered by the ruling with the pictures and the evidence, which could have perhaps given the jury a little more to actually see and shove it in her face and make her twist a little more. But on the other hand, the jury's kind of left to speculate. I mean, the judge really handled this in a weird way. I'm going to let you talk about pictures. I'm going to let you describe pictures, but don't do what everybody wants to know, which is, well, let me see the damn pictures.
Exactly.
And we can talk about the legality of it, which I think she's wrong. But that, putting that aside, if she thinks she's helping or being fair or making a proper ruling, and the idea is you don't want the jury to get materials they're not entitled to, I think talking about pictures, describing them, and nobody saying where are the damn pictures is only inviting the jury to speculate.
Now we heard, and I don't know if this is true, I should say that, but the pushback might have been because those pictures were cropped. They didn't have the original source. Do you think there's any truth to that? And secondly, I've received, and I know a lot of other people are talking about it, even in the chat right now. There's pictures of them, both of them together on a high school. I think it's either track or cross country team. There's a team picture of them in the same picture. Yeah. Cross country team. Do you think that could come into evidence later? Do you think that it's possible that she might get recalled later too as a witness?
No, I don't think she'll be recalled. I mean, I think she's done, but that doesn't mean that you can't attempt to advance the case by further impeaching the reliability of what she said or her credibility through other witnesses. So, I mean, look, I don't know if they intend to call this Caitlin Albert. She was home the night that this all happened, correct? She's one of the ones in the house. So let's assume that they call her. Then you could try to do the same thing. Now, if Lally objects again, because I didn't get a timely disclosure, I find it weak. If I can say a comment about him saying he had no idea about these pictures existing, I was doing some other work today and I heard that and I fell out of my chair because there's really only two possibilities. Number one, he's telling the truth, which would make it stunning, given that the entire defense here is trying to link the fingerprints of the Alberts into Sway and McCabe swaying a story, and you're telling us that you don't know. That just seems impossible to believe, particularly because of the Kearney thing, who has been, poking them and mocking them for years on this. And I mean, they charged him with crimes. I mean, they know who he is. They know everything about him. They think he's harassing witnesses. Do we really believe that they didn't look at everything he published on this case? I think the odds of that are less than half of 1%. So, but if you take him at face value, then he's once again achieved a high level of incompetence. But the more dastardly view is, well, that doesn't make any sense. And what if he's lying? And what if he's basically saying this as a way to say, these pictures shouldn't come in because I didn't have fair notice and this and that, and they didn't tell me. And I find that hard to believe. But, as far as another picture of them being on a high school team, to me, it's the same thing as the other pictures. I mean, look, she denied knowing her. Denied being friends. I don't know that being on the same team would move the ball any more forward than her hugging Caitlin Albert, chugging a beer in a bikini. I mean, I think that's probably more powerful. But to me, the most powerful one is the one, unless I missed it, I don't think Jackson even used, which is the Venmo. Okay, because if they're all at the beach, they're acquaintances, it's a class trip, something like that, whatever. But who in the hell sends and receives money from just random acquaintances. That strikes me as hard to believe too. So, I don't think she'll be recalled, but if Caitlin Albert is, they can certainly get into this. It's hard for me to believe as well that this witness, McLaughlin, did not know who the family was, particularly now. I mean, I think she said she knew who it was now, but then you kind of juxtapose that against McCabe, who I understand her testimony was, I don't know who that is. I didn't know then. And they showed her the picture of her on the scene, and she said, I don't know who that is. That's kind of hard to believe too.
A lot of that going on. Oh, I don't know that person.
Yeah. One other thing that jumped out, and I don't know if anybody else cares about this kind of stuff, and I couldn't tell you whether jurors do. And if this is offensive to anyone, I'll apologize. But I couldn't note how prominently she had a cross placed.
Oh boy,
in plain view. And there's certainly, look, this is not a religious debate. You can do whatever you want, but it struck me as, you can trust me. I would never say anything that couldn't be true.
They were in the chat today. I love my chat because we were having the same discussion.
Really? Yeah. No.
Like I said, I don't care about that stuff either. Like whatever you believe, I don't care.
Yeah,
like,
I don't.
But she's put it on display. Like it's like, hey, I'm a good Christian. I want everyone to know that I am a good Christian. I got the cross on 2 days in a row. People were calling her Crucifix Katie, which I thought was hilarious. We all noticed it in the chat. So it was definitely, there was even like a little debate among Karen Reed supporters. Like, some people were like, I'm Catholic. How dare you come after that? Like, so it even created a little debate among the free Karen Reed people, which was funny, but it was definitely noticed.
Oh, it's the whole wolf in sheep's clothing.
Well, I saw there was quite a reaction from, the defendant Karen when this was going on out of the presence of the jury. There was some serious shade coming from the defense table, burning a hole through the witness. I mean, a lawyer is always going to say, look, don't react no matter what, particularly when the jury is present. But that looked pretty raw and pretty real.
She had that 1,000-yard stare going, Karen is a badass, and I love it.
Yeah, no, that was pretty something was going on there.
And for anyone giving me any pushback, which happened a lot actually, a little bit today, I am Irish Catholic, so I think I can poke fun of my own, right?
Yeah,
it's okay. And people commenting on your shirt tonight. You're wearing the Celtics shirt, Mark.
Oh, it's late. It's Friday night. It's almost my bedtime, and it's the playoffs. So, but it looks like Orlando won, so I will not be going to Boston this weekend to watch Game 1, which sucks. But oh well.
And they were mad some people are mad that you're not wearing a Knicks shirt because you're in New York, but you're from Massachusetts. You're from Framingham.
I am. So I have to listen to it here, and with the Rangers and years with the Yankees, but. Being here in 2004 was a lot of fun.
I bet.
A lot of fun. Not so much the Patriots Super Bowl, the perfect season, but we don't talk about that.
What do you got for us, Mazamita? You're also a Celtics fan, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a huge Celtics fan. I hope they go all the way. And 2004 Red Sox was one of the greatest moments in sports history ever. I was so I'll talk about it for 19 hours if I had to, but I was going to talk about what happened today, but honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't recall what happened today, and I just don't know what to say anymore. I've just, I just lost all my memory, and I don't know what to talk about. I just don't know what to say. So
that sounds very familiar.
Know. That's a really good point, though, because I've lost track of the number of witnesses, but I feel like it's just become rote, and I can say, I already know what they're going to say. I'm working a 24-hour shift from 8 to 8. I'm either in number 1 or number 2, and I arrived, and it's over and over. And you're right. It just becomes, it's like Charlie Brown's teacher at some point. It just becomes wah, 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 wah.
Right.
and it's all blending together. And the grand takeaway is, okay, they responded. They found obviously a man in distress. They took him in, and there's a whole bunch of gobbledygook and inconsistencies about what what she said and to whom she said it and who witnessed it, and whether there's even proof that the people who claim they heard this were together when, in certain cases anyway, the video seems to suggest they didn't. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why you have to call 6 witnesses to say the same thing. Certainly the ones who don't have any damning admissions against her, I don't know what they add. And some of this other stuff can backfire. I mean, there's some of this stuff today about, she was complaining about who's going to raise these kids. And the one guy who threw out the comment, I found it snarky. I know that was stricken from the record. That's you're supposed to be the white hat when you're the prosecutor. You're supposed to be the good guy. You have a female defendant charged with murder. That's not that common. That's not a sexist comment. It's just not a common thing. And, I wonder if basically throwing these guys up at the end to just essentially throw mud, really, and say, she's sitting there acting. I mean, the way they're trying to portray it is acting like a lunatic. What does that get them? I'm not sure how that helps them. The more crazy she sounds, the theory would be then she may say stupid shit or may be emotional. And when you're emotional, you say things, you go up, you go down. So what are they accomplishing with this other than putting everyone to sleep, demonstrating more inconsistencies? And what you said a minute ago, Mazza, which is you can't remember anything because you can't. And if you can't, you're intelligent, you're studying this. The jurors don't study this. They hear it once and that's it.
That's right.
You can look at this all you want over and over again. And if we can't remember what they're talking about, I'm not sure what anyone else can, but it shocks the hell out of me that you're a week through this and you haven't even, the narrative hasn't even left January 29th. Like they've just removed the body. That's basically where we are. And that's crazy. I mean, they are going to put people to sleep.
I got a question for you that I've been waiting to ask you all day, Mark, and that's I wanted your expert input on Auntie Bev allowing Katie McLaughlin to leave that stand almost as soon as Alan Jackson started to bring Caitlin Albert's name up and Brian Albert's name up. And then also, to the very end of this particular question I wanted to bring up for you is Alan Jackson immediately after that 30 minute break or whatever it was, immediately harping on the fact of asking Katie, did you speak to anyone in the Commonwealth during that time period? I've been waiting all day just to hear your thoughts on that moment and whether that's anything we should take from it.
No.
Okay.
No, that's a lawyer's Hail Mary puncher's chance. It's very common over a lunch break or, did you speak to anyone? I mean, and sometimes, you may get shocked with the answer. I don't think that was meant to be anything, but I think that the judge, she's treading on, possible error. I don't know that it would be error that would ever reverse anything, but something we talked about the other day is coming into play now, which is, the right to impeach with evidence of bias or favor or a motive to fabricate is the single most important part of cross-examination, bar none. And that is well known. It's part of the right to confront under the Sixth Amendment that Davis versus Alaska. We talked about that case before. It's a Supreme Court case and the law of the land. And what the Supreme Court said basically was that you always have a right to impeach for bias. And so if you're going to try to curtail that, it better be fine-tuned. And, I suppose what the judge would say, well, is I did give you a chance. I just didn't let you show the pictures, but she really wasn't letting him go very deep. And if he thinks it, look, he can probe all he wants. He ought to be allowed to ask these questions. If the jury doesn't like it, that's the risk you take. I mean, if you look at some of these people comment that, Karen Reed is guilty of, the Kennedy assassination and every other high profile murder.
What is up with that? They
Whatever.
come up with a bigger conspiracy.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. There's nothing you're going to do to convince them of anything, but you have a right to go after this idea that, she's being framed. And it's, the key is on cross-examination, you have to have what's called a good faith basis. So, you can't literally just go up to a witness and say, isn't it true? You rape children. I mean, that's outrageous. What are you doing? How could you say something like that? But when you're cross-examining, an EMT who alleges that Karen Reed made a very, damning statement, allegedly. The statement is somewhat inconsistent with which she told Proctor, who is, the king of the conspiracy, according to the defense, or certainly the major actor, if you will. Maybe not, he's the cleanup guy of the conspiracy, I suppose. But it turns out that this EMT is a friend. Let's just call it what it is. Enough with this acquaintance nonsense. They may not be best friends. She's not going to be in the bridal party, but they're friends, and she knows her. And, she works in that town in a, what I would call a quasi law enforcement capacity. They're not cops or anything, but they're EMTs and firefighters. And, they see the cops all the time. Well, who else is a cop? The Alberts and all of them. So you certainly should be allowed to question that direct link when it turns out that she's the EMT who starts this whole snowball rolling downhill that she said, I hit him. I don't know how you can cut that off. I think it was inappropriate. And I think she's wrong. And, the law that she's citing, I looked at it. It's almost identical to the New York discovery statute. It just basically says that you're supposed to show the other side. We don't like trial by ambush. So the other side is supposed to know. But again, the problem here is, do you really think Lally had no idea that they were going to try to impeach McLaughlin for having bias towards the Alberts? Do you really think he didn't know about these photos or that this could come up? So I find his protest to be a little silly. There was no harm. There was no prejudice that was caused the Commonwealth, as they say in Massachusetts, by allowing those pictures to come in. I mean, if he got sandbagged and he didn't, oh my God, this is going to destroy my examination. If I had known about this, I never would have done this. That's kind of like what the discovery statute seeks to prevent. That's not the case here. So he should have been allowed to go deeper. He should have been allowed to use the pictures. And, they made a record, which is the important thing you do. You complain, you object. It's there. But I mean, overall impact, I think she doesn't look so good. I mean, look at the body language again, staring at the floor, shifting around, getting defensive, and really splitting hairs. I mean, really fine tuning definitions between friends and acquaintances and knowing how to use the word a before saying someone. I know a Caitlin Albert, but I don't know the 22 other ones. So are we talking about the same one? I don't know. I mean, that's just, it's trying too hard, which also is another example of a witness who's not really prepped.
Yeah, not prepped.
Okay,
That's a key term. Not prepped. Not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
Mazza, you got?
Yeah, do you raise an eyebrow at the fact that Judge Bev allowed her to walk off that stand like that and take that break? Did you think anything was suspicious about that at all?
The break in terms of when they were litigating the admissibility of the photos?
That was before this. This was when Alan Jackson initially started in mentioning Caitlin Albert and Brian
Right.
Albert. Yep.
And no, I mean, look, I guess she calls them up because she wants to know, what are you doing? But look, do I think the judge keeps doing this at moments of possible momentum for the defense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good.
She did it the day before when he was trying to play the video, the two videos on top of each other and have somebody identify something. And so, yeah, I mean, look, you guys are getting to me with her a little bit more. Today's the first day, I think, where one of the rulings was a little inappropriate, but the noises are getting, it's getting obvious. I agree with you.
Yeah.
The sighing and I really don't like the language on, I'm going to let him have that one. That's just this. It's not judicious. That's unjudicious. It's unbecoming. And it's more importantly, it's editorializing. I mean, you're almost saying, what's the difference? This is meaningless. He can have it. And she shouldn't be doing that. I don't believe.
Well, she comes off like a pro wrestling referee that's playing the villain, that's helping the villain. And every time the hero tries to prevail, the villain referee somehow slows the count. Or, it's kind of like, I feel like I'm watching a cartoon wrestling show, basically,
Right.
sometimes with her, where she's helping out, sustaining Lally's objections within microseconds of each other. And very rarely letting Alan Jackson have any opportunity at all. But that's how it feels. I start to feel like I'm 8 years old watching pro wrestling again, and there's a referee that's totally corrupt out there, or maybe just the NBA. Maybe I just could have used the NBA as an example.
Yeah. Tim Donaghy, right?
Right, exactly.
I had I mean, I don't know if you were done with this witness, but I had another thought that just was like, what are they doing? Why did they go to the home today? What the hell was the DA thinking doing that now?
That was weird. I couldn't figure that out, especially too that they trot out the car.
They have
ridiculous.
They have no evidence of what happened. I mean, in the sense of like the crime. Again, they've done, they've described
too early to do that, right?
I mean,
all that Lexus was missing were two things: a red bow on the top of it, and then a box where you can sign up for a raffle to win the vehicle at the end of the friggin' day. That's how ridiculous that looked out there.
It looked ridiculous. They have no context. I don't know why they did it, but the other thing is the taillight. Somebody just put this up right now, right?
Yes.
As I'm talking about this.
Yes.
That's not the way it looked.
No,
Exactly.
not at all.
It makes it look
Not
more
at all.
guilty. It's like, what did you tamper with? That's like Sean on the golf.
It was so clean
yeah.
that it looked like a taillight had never been installed in the first place. There was
I have to
and no
assume
damage. I mean,
that-
but the taillight's gone,
it's
and
gone.
no
Yeah, and, like, the
scratches,
wires
no
hanging
damage
out.
on the bumper, nothing.
And then there's like, it looks like almost like a little bullet hole or a little, somebody like did something on the car. But I have to assume that the defense agreed to this fully aware of what the car looks like. In other words, that it's not in the same or substantially the same condition, because I would be jumping up and down, having a stroke, saying this is not appropriate. So I'm going to assume that they agreed to do it, and then they will just, have pictures and, how does a jury look at a DA when we find, because they haven't shown the car yet. This is what I'm getting. Like, they've done none of this yet. I'm not talking about the car today. They haven't shown the way the car appeared at the time that it was. Okay. And when you see pictures of the car as it appeared, and you see like half a tail light, and then you see the car that they threw out there today, and you say, what is this? What kind of chicanery is going on here? How did this happen?
Seriously.
So somebody's saying it wasn't the Commonwealth that motioned for to go to the scene. That's fine. But if I were them and I was, paying attention, I would still argue it's my case. Okay. It's my direct case. I'm quarterbacking right now. So I don't want to go yet. I want to do it in the right time or do it after. And why would they agree to do it before they've even said proven anything? Proven, I use loosely, but presented evidence that she was at the scene where O'Keefe was lying on the ground and she was very upset. That's the evidence so far.
Yeah. They haven't explained it. They haven't explained how it happened.
I
There's
had
so
to
much
look
to
up
go.
pictures of broken taillight on Google, which I posted to my page earlier, and I posted the pictures of what they showed, and I posted a picture of this pickup that I had found, the Silverado, and it showed like, a big chunk of the taillight missing, but pieces of the taillight in the frame were still there. And furthermore, in this particular picture I found, you saw some dent marks on that Silverado. This is a guy that got reversed into that vehicle. The body looks so clean. There's no dents anywhere at all. But yet this taillight's just totally gone. And I'd love to know if they have any pictures of this taillight in any kind of state at all, because all we know is that it was cracked at some point. And that was when she backed into John O'Keefe's vehicle when she was out searching for him early in the morning. That's it. That's the only physical evidence. There's only one video so far that we know of that is clearly showing that taillight impact anything, and it was when she backed into his vehicle with that camera footage. And when Michael Proctor, which is alleged and believed by many of us, when he cleaned that thing out and cracked it into 40, whatever he did or said he did it, he had no idea that security footage outside John O'Keefe's home that night or that morning was recording Karen Reed pulling out of that driveway and showing her back into that vehicle and showing her leave. And it's been my theory for a long time that that's where the inception of the idea of the taillight saga was born in Michael Proctor's mind, because Karen Reed had told Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe that I cracked my taillight, and they said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Karen. And at some point, I'm theorizing here, and I'm saying this as an alleged basis that it's plausible this probably happened. Someone told Michael Proctor that Karen Reed told them that she cracked their taillight. And it's from that exact moment where that taillight thing took on a life of its own and became a part of the cover-up. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that fits, I think, what they're saying. The other question I had, do they have the car facing the right way?
Yes, that was facing the right way. It was about probably 10 to 15 feet closer to the driveway than it should have been, though.
So they're alleging that she backed into him, like from the driveway side towards the flagpole fire hydrant side.
Correct.
Yes.
So she pulled out of the driveway. I'm just, so where is O'Keefe? He's like down by the flagpole,
Right? Doesn't make sense.
Where is
Doesn't make
he?
sense.
Exactly.
I mean, if he
None
gets
of
out
that
of the
makes sense.
car, and if they're in the if they have an argument in the car in the driveway, I
Right.
get it. He's in the driveway, and maybe she, they claim she tries to mow him down the driveway. What's he doing creeping around
Yeah.
the street by
And
the
she
flagpole?
was parked on the
Well,
curb.
yeah, she dropped them off at the curb, and then
And she backed up too for another car. So another car was there. Ryan Nagel.
Right.
He's gonna, and he didn't see John O'Keefe. He just saw her in the car. So it seemed like when Ryan Nagel pulled up, it seemed like John O'Keefe was already in the house. So I mean, I don't know, how are they going to explain that? It's a good
Have
question.
they alleged that he was hit from the distance, or that he was hit and dragged, and that was part of this?
hit from the distance, almost as if he was hit, and then he just went flying. You remember the movie Jurassic Park
Of
when the
course.
power goes on and the kid
Yep.
goes launching? Basically, it's like that's basically the theory, is that he got hit and then he just ricocheted at an angle. There was an expert on Court TV last night that was on with Vinny Peloton, and made the comment that, and this has been my long theory as well, if he was backed into, he likely would have been knocked down parallel to the vehicle, meaning that the vehicle would have continued
That's what I'm at.
in
Exactly.
reverse and run him
Totally.
over. This expert said on this show last night that there would have been tire marks evident, not
On his
necessarily
foot,
on
yeah.
the street, but on John's
On John
body.
O'Keefe.
On him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's why.
What happened to his legs? Because I mean, that's where it would run you right over. I mean,
But they're saying
Exactly.
he got launched. He got hit and flying.
Pretty much. He got dinged at an angle. I don't know how that, I mean, he would only get knocked back. He wouldn't, I mean, unless he rolled away, but even if he rolled away, that's not going to make up another 3 or 4 feet that he's on the yard for. It just doesn't make any sense.
The taillight, I mean, I know it's a big car. I mean, that's got to be, however many feet. And this guy was 6'2" or something.
yeah.
I mean, so if somebody
Yep.
at that height was assuming he wasn't lying down on the street, standing up and gets hit, for the most part, standing straight up. I mean, it's midsection, area generally, and he's got nothing there. I mean,
He's got a huge gash on the back of his head. I mean, where does that come in? How do you get
He's not going to get that from the curb. There's no way
Yeah.
that curb would have caused that. The fire hydrant was probably another 3 to 4 to 5 feet ahead of where he would have been hit, apparently. So there's no time for he's not going to crack his head on the snow or the grass. Let's be
No, and
real
the
here.
curb, even the sharp end of the curb, if there was
Right.
one, would be covered by snow and plowing and
correct.
all that. Yeah, no, that
Correct. It
doesn't-
would have cushioned that a little bit, and certainly given the depth and length of that cut laceration on the back of his head, it would have to be significant. If I was to venture a guess, I'd probably say that it probably happened from a weight room bench in the weight room inside the house, but don't quote me. I'm just theorizing.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like to me. I mean, it looks like just a piece of metal, and exactly like what you're talking about.
I'm sure that
bench.
the defense medical examiner expert will use the magic word that it's at least consistent with that, meaning, he can't obviously tell you what it was or wasn't, but that, you can't eliminate it as a possibility.
Two
But
black eyes. Like David Yannetti once said, he looked like he got punched out by Mike Tyson. 2 black eyes, a laceration on the
hands.
back of his
Most
head.
interesting injuries are the
Right.
hands. That's
Right.
That's fighting, defensive. I mean,
Right.
I don't know why your hands would turn black and blue. I mean, I'm assuming there's medical or will be medical testimony that that's not frostbite, or that's
Right.
not from being out in the cold, that's consistent with some kind of something.
Suzanne brings up a good point that we heard today about the right eye. how there was also a cut there too, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I got to think that's from getting punched. I mean, that just,
I mean,
Look,
again, the burden of proof is on them. I mean, and that's just what you're saying is logical. It certainly seems possible, medically supported, and you add it within everything else that you're hearing here, and you look at it from a reasonable doubt standpoint. If anything the defense offers is plausible and they can't exclude, they have a problem. And the other thing they're ignoring too is they're getting all excited about Karen said I hit him. Play it from the other side. Okay, assume that's credible, and not credible in terms of being what actually happened, but credible that the jury says we believe she probably said that. Okay, that I hit him. Well, she's running around upset. All kinds of things happen. She does have a broken taillight from something else or whatnot. She's talking to these other people. Is it possible that even if she said that she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about? Because you still need proof to show what happened. I mean, you could never convict a defendant on an admission alone, and that's not a very powerful admission anyway. But if all of the other evidence doesn't support that, then she's still not even close to being found guilty. And I'm not saying this is credible evidence, by the way, I hit him, but the DA isn't winning if they somehow make jurors believe that those statements have to be true. Nope, you're silenced.
we have a commenter saying that on Tuesday, the prosecution is going to submit some ring video that shows Karen hit him. Haven't they been saying this for forever, Basil?
What is it? A staged reenactment?
I know, right? I mean,
Jeez.
they said they had ring video when right at the beginning, and then they said they didn't. So I don't know where that's coming from.
Let me suggest to you this: if they had ring video that showed, this happened, number one, they would be obligated to disclose that to the defense. Number two, a lot of times lawyers can have very unpleasant conversations about the facts of life with clients that are not, pleasant conversations. And one of those conversations in this case would have been, hypothetically, there is a video of you backing up, from 60 feet at 20 something miles an hour and plowing into him. By the way, do you think that if this DA's office had that video, that would not have been leaked?
I know,
That's
right?
a great point.
Why would they go
hold it
through all
for
the
so
BS?
long?
Yeah,
Exactly.
with
But
all that they leaked too, they've leaked a lot of shit too.
They don't have video of this, and they don't, because you would know from that the defense would be taking a different tact. I don't know, why do we think they're offering that on Tuesday, other than somebody
some random comment.
Yeah,
I don't believe it. They've been saying this crap for months and they never produce.
there are rules of discovery. I mean,
Yeah,
people would know
exactly.
this. It doesn't work that way.
Bobby M just sent us $5. Thank you so much. We've had some super chats already. Thank you for all the super chats. He says, why the inside of the car? Was the glove compartment in the radio area absolutely dismantled? Why did Lally ask them to focus on the center console? I don't know. I don't know if any of our guests know either. What do you think, guys?
Only thing I could think of, and again, this may be nonsense, was it's a large SUV. I'm not a Lexus person, but it's a large SUV, and I imagine has a very large center console. Could a cocktail glass fit in there?
Okay. I mean,
that's all I got. I have no idea why they think that would somehow be significant. I don't know.
I mean, I don't drink at all anymore, and I have a center console that could fit a cocktail glass too. I just seem such a weird. That's it. That's like, okay, But who knows with Lally? I mean, that's a good question.
That's true too. I mean, he sees things that may be important that you don't, such as, once again, establishing that no less than 6 EMTs were working 24-hour shifts from 8 to 8.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. No clue.
Got another good question here. This is from Leah Baker. Thank you for the super chat donation, Leah. She says, I think Katie McLaughlin was prepped. That was Lally telling her how to respond, not remember anything, which is the fifth without pleading the fifth.
I agree.
It seemed like we heard that
100,000%.
over and over again with them.
Yep.
They remember
was
certain
prepped.
things and then other things. Oh, I can't remember. What do you think about that, Mark?
It
Definitely.
is
Oh, God.
it is a common thing. It can be very disturbing that witnesses will get memory faults that may not be memory faults, but may be lying couched in the appearance of a memory fault. If what the defense is going to have to do, and they did some of this, and they'll go back in summation when you get somebody like that, is to say, really break down what she could remember and what she couldn't. And normally what you'll find out is, ain't it funny how she seems to remember all the things that would somehow be kind of harmful for the defense, but anything that could be helpful, she doesn't remember, such as, I mean, I'm sure they're going to attack and say, do you believe she couldn't remember McCabe's name? That doesn't make any sense. Yet she can remember this statement that I hit him, but even by her own kind of sort of admission to Proctor, you know, it wasn't said to me, it was said to the other woman, and all those kinds of inconsistencies get worked in here, and they will definitely come after her in summation for how convenient that the one witness we know conclusively was friends with the Alberts couldn't remember any of these facts, which might have, you know, helped Karen. So
We have just received new information that just came to us 14 minutes ago. The three of us were all tagged in this by Auntie Bev's Cottage at Light Rebel on Twitter that has revealed a thread of 3 new photos that have emerged with Katie and Caitlin Albert together, including one of them side by side. And this is at multiple gatherings, multiple locations here. And it scribbles out all the people. Yeah, we have them. We're tagged in them right now on X.
I mean, can we pull them up?
Yeah, Mike, want me just to send this to your inbox, or I can actually just drop the link in here. Let me just drop the link in the thing here.
The private chat.
Yeah.
I guess my first question would be, does she look older than the high school pictures? In other words,
I'd say they look high school. These look like high school photos to me.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, there I see them. Is this her with the American flag? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that would be McLaughlin, I guess, on the
shorter
right.
one.
And the one sticking their tongue out is Albert.
Yes, correct.
That looks a little older to me than the other ones.
Yeah.
That certainly doesn't look like an acquaintance, though.
No.
And then the second one, I guess the short one is McLaughlin again, and then the one on the right in the orange or pink shorts is Albert.
Correct.
So it's 5 girls hanging out. Looks like in one of the girls' house again. That's yeah. No, I mean, look. I mean, I suppose what they could do is Monday make a stink out of this and say we want to, you know, kind of recall her. We think, you know, that she committed perjury. I think there's a credible argument that given what she tried to do in terms of moving her title away from friend, is that perjury? I mean, in the eyes of the judge, is that material? I would say yes, because it certainly shows a lot more. And then, of course, the other question is this. I don't know the answer to this, but the first house looks like a beach house, like a Cape Cod house or something where the flag is. But that second picture, I mean, whose house is that? I don't know. Is that the Albert house? I don't know.
She didn't seem to remember either, which is weird, right?
Yeah, she couldn't know.
Couldn't remember, which is strange. I mean, I remember where I was in a lot of photos like that from friends.
Oh, exactly. I mean, geez, you know, how many times I'm driving down the street in town I grew up in, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember going to a birthday party with some random kid that I went to second grade with in this place, and that was the only time I ever went there. Like I you know, there's little things like that I just remember from 30 years ago when I was like 8 that are just memories I got stored up. You know, it's just you instinctually remember certain things about your life, and just this whole game of I'm not sure, I don't remember.
She's not that old. She's not as old as I am, and I remember that.
This is what may happen too. And you know, this is really interesting because this kind of goes really hand in hand with the DeVecchio thing we talked about the other day. Now everyone saw what happened today with this woman under oath looking, well, I don't want to say looking at the eye, looking at the floor most of the time, but nevertheless telling under oath Karen Reed's attorneys that, she's just an acquaintance. I don't even know where she lives. We don't really socialize that much with her. She's just whatever. Well, what could happen is somebody who knows the truth may be pissed off. Somebody who knows the truth is pissed off, maybe sending random yahoos like us these pictures. But
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
more importantly, somebody who knows this is bullshit may decide I need to call her lawyers. And this is where it could get interesting. The defense may want to add those people as witnesses,
Yeah.
like in their case, to try to destroy the credibility of her.
It's funny you mentioned that because we've been hearing rumors that she talks a lot. That woman, Katie McLaughlin, has had loose lips all around town.
But if
and then all of these folks, all these EMPs have been talking.
Here is your litmus test on the judge. Okay. So the defense then would want to call these witnesses to, torch this witness and blow her up and then add to the conspiracy, all of that. Now, does the judge say, okay, or does she say, this is what, is it collateral? In other words, is this witness so far afield? I don't think so, because she claims that she heard Karen Reed say, I hit him. And so if the judge were to say, I'm not going down the rabbit hole, having a second trial over whether Katie McLaughlin is a friend or an acquaintance and lied and that sort of thing, now you're getting into, you're depriving me the right to a fair trial because I have a Sixth Amendment right to confront the witnesses against me and expose their bias. But I would not be surprised that if people do know the truth and they know this is a lie, they come forward then. Just to circle back to last night, that's what happened in DeVecchio. When that witness testified, the person who came forward, there were two prominent authors who wrote a book and had a manuscript with that witness. And they had promised her, secrecy and confidentiality until they saw her get up under oath and falsely accuse a man of murder. And they said, you know what? We're still people before we're journalists. And they came to us and the case was dead, within 24 hours. I don't think this witness is that significant that it's a case killer. But if you want to add more jet fuel to the conspiracy theory, having one of, a friend of Albert perjure herself and then just get absolutely torpedoed by other people with absolute proof. I mean, what kind of picture is that going to paint about what the DA is doing here? It looked terrible. So don't be surprised when that happens.
Isn't it amazing too? These are the best witnesses they seem to need. They needed Katie McLaughlin to say that today, but then she got destroyed. So it shows really the lack of strength of their case. They don't have that ring video that they talked about. The best they have is Katie McLaughlin, it seems like, right?
The other thing they better hope they have, and this is a judge problem, but this is like real life problems in trials, and especially in modern times because, it's all social media and everything. But they better hope that jurors, look, they're told not to do this, not to look at stuff. They're still people. And, look, they should follow the rules because, it's important. Usually the prejudice goes against the defendant. In this case, ironically, most of the press goes against the DA, but whoever's side they're on, if you're the DA, you're freaking out that this stuff is going to be seen out of court by jurors who then whisper to other jurors or whisper to whomever and say that, that girl lied, because that's not a proper thing for their deliberation to say, but my God, she, there's these other pictures we didn't see. But if nothing else, if I were Jackson, I would go back, I'd make the argument, and if nothing else, strengthen the record that you already made and said, we're finding more, and these are being and this witness lied, and I renew my application to cross-examine her, and I think we should reopen her examination. And I think the judge is going to say no, because she's going to say this is just more of the same.
If there are any jurors listening, I don't want to hear from you now.
Oh, no, God.
I want to hear from you after the trial's over. As soon as that trial's over, then you hit us up. I think I'm safe. Am I safe on that to say that, Mr. Bederow? There you go.
Listen, no jurors. I am not a resident of Wendy World, so no jurors.
I'm not talking to him. I haven't talked to any
appreciate my
jurors.
law license and would like
Exactly.
to keep it. So if hang
I
up.
haven't reached out to any. I don't want to hear from them.
No,
So I
there's
agree.
look, obviously I don't think there's any of that, but
I
the
hope not.
point is that from the DA's perspective, just this stuff getting out, if nothing else, it's going to gin up the public too. I mean, what will some of these loons on the other side, and they're not all loons. I mean, people can think differently. That's
Mostly
fine.
loons. Mostly loons.
A
Yeah,
lot.
some people just don't know. Some people are
lot.
just reading some headlines and assuming.
Well, there were some, fascinating posts by, the son of Wendy, which were, I mean, his interpretation of what happened today, which is loon, obviously. But, there will be people even who want to believe that, there's no conspiracy. But if you see that a witness like this, who is close to that family, lied about it, it begs the obvious question, and the summation point writes itself. Why are they lying about it unless it's really as awful
Exactly.
as we're portraying it? I mean, again, and he would make a great argument and say, look what she's doing. Okay. She wouldn't just say it's a friend. Yeah, I know her. If she comes clean and just says, yeah, I know her, we hang out a little bit, and does that, and then she'd say, I'm just responding to a 911 call of a dead man on a lawn. I don't know who it is or where. Maybe she did know it was their house. I don't know. But the point is, if she says that and shrugs it off, it's kind of a
Comes
nothing.
off a lot of differently.
Yep.
It comes off her defensiveness did her in. I mean, that's the whole point of it.
Over the top, over nothing.
Yeah. We got another donation from Jen Altman, 999. She says, can you talk about excited utterances, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic hearsay exception, which allows generally statements that are made when someone is screaming, crying, excited. I mean, the theory is that a statement made under duress and emotion as something is happening, that the brain doesn't have as much time to process and think of a lie, so it's deemed to be more trustworthy. So statements, I mean, like, for example, some of this stuff that they're saying Karen said, if the evidence is that she's running around screaming, saying, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I hit him, that would be an excited utterance. But when the statements are coming from the defendant, there's an even more simple principle. It's just called an admission, and it's admissible anyway, whether it's excited or not. But for other witnesses, an excited utterance, could be a basis to get what might be otherwise deemed hearsay admissible. But the DA has a right to offer any statements that allegedly were made by Karen. Those are just called party admissions, and that's another just classic open and shut exception to the hearsay rule.
Okay. And so most of her statements too painted that she was very upset about this situation.
Yeah, they probably under the law would be excited utterances. But what I'm saying is it doesn't matter in this context because the person making the alleged statement is the defendant. So the other party can always introduce what's called an admission by the other side.
But did you think that the testimony today painted her really? I mean, I felt like it didn't really paint her that badly.
No. I again, a little bit of the opposite. The last couple of guys, I kind of just rolled my eyes and said, if you're trying, well, let me back up. So I don't think they think this through is what I'm getting at. And now let me unpack that. My theory of the case is that this angry, bitter, scorned, whatever woman was so pissed off that she just lost it and decided to roll over him or send him flying, kill him, knew she did it, and just decided, okay, I'm going to go home, watch TV, and, life's great. She goes back. She's clearly frantic and concerned. All right. And when they're trying to portray her as a bad person or selfish or whatever by saying, what are we going to do about those kids? I can't do this. Well, you wouldn't be in that situation if you didn't try to kill them. Right. So if you don't want to have to deal with the fallout of it, one thinks you might not actually be guilty of doing what led to the thing you're complaining about. It doesn't make any
Right.
sense. And beyond that, I think they look petty. I mean, to have the witness come up and say that, you know, she made a comment about one of the other women in the
Yeah, I'm glad
in
you
the
brought that
house.
up. Yeah,
And he's and then Lally says, "Well, how did it sound to you?" Okay, this is one of the few times he prepped, right? This was, you know, he's clearly looking for an answer. And the guy says, "Well, to tell you the truth, it sounded kind of snarky."
yeah.
What a dick thing to say. I'm sorry, pardon my
And he
language.
was friends with that woman too. Like
Right. But
that was so bizarre because it seemed like for once Lally was trying to get ahead of the relationships, but it just did not. It came off even worse. It
it
was
came
like,
off terrible
yeah,
because what is the non-prejudicial purpose of any of that? Other than just to say, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you shouldn't like her. Is he trying to say that she's what, of sound mind at the time this is happening? I think it was just another terrible way to do it. Yes, somebody's putting up something. Yeah, all this discussion that she, you know, she's a psycho. We had to take her away. She's out of control and she was giving us a hard time. Okay, just for a minute, assume that she came upon a scene where her boyfriend is lying dead in the yard. She tried to save him, which is a weird thing to do when you want somebody dead, unless that's part of the acting job. I don't know. I mean, these people will allege anything. Maybe that's part of it. But why would you do all of this? What are you gaining other than potentially risking pissing off the jury for being, you know, it's a low blow and it's not relevant. They did object, so a lot of it is kept out, but it just seems to me you're already wasting the jury's time. And if you had to call 2 more EMTs who add nothing, literally nothing other than, you know, we didn't really like the way she was talking about who's going to take care of the kids, that kind of stuff. And you're wasting my time for hours of testimony for that kind of crap. I know. I think the needle doesn't move forward, and if anything, it moves backwards from the perspective of the DA.
Mazamita, you got anything on any of that?
No, I'm honestly just these pictures that are just coming out today are just. I mean, we all knew Katie was fibbing on that stand today, but my goodness gracious, it's just, you know, the thought I had when I was rewatching it this evening, I just wanted to kind of watch it a second time over before I came on the air today. And, you know, I always had a saying growing up is that usually when crazy things happen and you're just seeing things are just totally outrageous, as crazy as you often think it is, it usually goes a little bit deeper and even a lot deeper and is a lot more involved behind the scenes than you may think. And what I mean by that is that sometimes when you only think there's a few people that are involved in something, there's usually a lot more. And just some of the testimonies I've heard the past few days and just everyone saying that they hit him. And then the way Alan Jackson's just picking him apart by saying, well, did you report it? Did you tell anyone? Did you tell the police? You got Alan Jackson today saying, Katie, you were standing here, and here's Jen, and here's Karen, and there's apparently Saraf right there, and you're testifying that you heard her say it. He's testifying. He didn't testify at all that he heard her say it. So
Let me,
what's going on here?
none of this makes any sense. And they're going to say this in the summation, and they're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, here's the scene as the DA would have you believe it. Okay. You have, you know, her boyfriend is dying on the lawn. She's distraught. There are a number of police officers there. There are a number of EMT people there. There are the ambulances, this and that. And over the course of this horrible scene, over the period of, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, we have 5 or 6 different people who all claim they heard a woman say, I hit him, I did it, it's my fault, something like that. And literally none of them, and you would look to the cops to blame more for this than EMT people, but nevertheless, they're all there hearing this. And not one of them ever really tried to just take her aside and say, what do you mean? Or go to the cops and say, look, I know she's freaking out. She's upset, but you know, she keeps saying, I hit him. She, you know, we need to look into this. And what does that mean? And somebody needs to ask her, what do you mean? And you hit him with what? And if she says, my car, well, where's your car? Oh, it's over at whatever. And they look at it and it's missing a taillight. And how do you explain that? And they're claiming that the other witnesses are saying this. And literally nobody does anything. Even when they get her to the hospital, under this Section 12 provision under Massachusetts law, they get her to the hospital. Even then, nobody starts looking around saying, well, do we think that this is, not an accident or a suspicious death? I would suggest to you that a police officer dead without proper clothes on and one shoe lying on the front lawn of his friend's house where he went to party would be with a giant gash in the back of his head and an arm full of scratches and a face that is all beat up and his hands are beat up, that somebody might think that this is something that maybe we should talk to the lady who says over and over again, I hit him, and they don't do that.
Numerous individuals were in the house and had left after John O'Keefe had been dropped off and Karen Reed had headed back to his place. And these individuals would have left and gotten their cars, and some of them presumably would have driven in that direction down that street and would have seen a body laying on the ground. So it's going to be very interesting as some of these witnesses are questioned later in this case.
The plow driver. How are they going to deal with the plow driver who's going to say at 2:30, I'm pretty certain. I mean, I don't think he's going to say like literally I can, but he's going to say, I imagine with a pretty high level of confidence, because as I recall, I have to look in that direction to make sure I'm not banging into mailboxes and whatever, the fire hydrant, really.
And the curbs too.
Curbs. And there was nothing there. But when I came back, on my next round, there was that mystery Ford Edge there. And then, of course, we know a couple hours at the latest, a body was there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how they're even going to deal with that.
Yeah. You didn't see anybody? You didn't see anything? You were leaving? You didn't notice anything? Nothing?
The problem they have, and I mean, it's kind of repetitive every time we do this, but it's important for people to recognize it, is every time we start bringing up these facts, they're not going to be challenged. In other words, the best thing, and by the way, from a lawyer's perspective, we will pay money to see Lally attempt to cross-examine instead of conduct a direct, which is a whole nother art form. That's a whole nother league. That's like, major league pitching and not AA. It's different. But the best he's going to do with the plow guy is what? To have him say, I can't state with certainty, but I look specifically in that direction on purpose because what is it? I was driving Frankenstein or whatever it is. I mean, it writes itself, right? And I'm telling you that I don't think there was any body there. And the cross is going to be, oh yeah. Well, how do you know? Well, because this is why. Well, okay, then, fine. And if you can't solve that problem, you're already 90% to reasonable doubt just based on that alone, because under their theory, he's got to be there.
Exactly.
Has to be.
Yeah, that body has to be there.
Has
All
to
people
be there.
walk by
Has
and
to
the
be there.
plow.
Yep.
Has to be there.
More questions. We got a lot of questions. I hope people don't get mad at me because we don't always get to every question. There's so many that come up. So please understand that it's hard for us to even read all the comments. So many comments coming in through tonight. We got 1,500 people of right now. So you're not the only one. There's probably another 1,000 people that we couldn't read the question from. So please be patient. Jean writes, she's a regular listener. We like Jean a lot. She says, how mad do you think Proctor and Albert were when they found out about Jen's Google search?
I don't know, but obviously that is, I mean, that's there's big problems and little problems, and then there are ginormous problems. That's ginormous. And again, reasonable doubt. So the DA has an expert who says, no, we think it was made at 6 something. The bottom line is the defense is going to have credible experts who are going to say that's not true, and here's why. And in the worst case scenario, most likely for the DA, the best case scenario, they cancel each other out. And meanwhile, now you're staring at a 2:27 a.m. search, which, and I think, again, a masterful job in the opening statement. They fit it into the timeline that it's not just 2:27 in isolation. You know, it's after she goes home, and her phone shows her going upstairs. She's talking to these people. The messages are deleted, and there you go. And what is her story apparently going to be? I was checking sports scores or
Yeah,
something.
because of
Yeah, that's
soccer.
correct. Yeah, right. Yeah. Or maybe she was just worried that if she didn't get in her car within 30 seconds when she left the house, she might have frozen to death and dropped dead in the parking lot. Yeah, maybe that was her concern.
Well, I think she's going to say that it didn't happen. I
Yeah.
think that's it. She's going to say it happened at 6:30 when
Well,
Karen Reed asked her to do it.
very,
Oh, right. Dad is going to say
Which
something
is
else.
another. I mean, even if
no, that's a
that was
disaster.
true, yeah.
But no, they're going to get killed on that, because as a very astute observer on Twitter yesterday reminded us, her name's Olivia. She's brilliant, by the way.
Olivia Nile.
Yep.
Yeah, she's really good at this. But she put forth Proctor's, or was it I think no, not Proctor. The one trooper that is not on the DA's witness list, who happens to be the one who interviewed McCabe. And McCabe told a story where she tried too hard. And this is another classic example of a shitty witness. She locked herself into such a set of facts, which, if they're not true, everything she says will be disregarded, because what she said to this cop was that I was sitting in a police cruiser with Karen, which, my understanding, there's no video of this, and that while we were in the cruiser, we started praying together. We started saying, I'm not Hail Marys.
Hail Mary.
I don't know. I'm not the right guy to comment on
Our Father. Yeah.
something
whatever.
like that, which again is I shouldn't say it's a hell of a detail in the context of Hail Marys. It's quite a detail to just throw in there for this dramatic story. And of course, during this emotional moment in the back of a police car, she says, you know, can you check how long? So the problem is, there's no evidence that they were together in a police car, right? I mean, there's just no evidence of this at all. So how does she explain that? No, but I remember praying with her. I mean, that's such a detail. And she's going to say, well, maybe I was wrong. It happened out on the street. It happened somewhere else. So I think she's going to get clobbered on that. And it will become apparent to the jury that she's lying about the purpose and timing of that bizarre and frankly incriminating Google search.
Wow, that's a great detail, because I know those police cars, they don't have body cams on the cops themselves, but they have cameras in those cars.
They
We know
do.
that.
They do have dash cams. Are they always on? You know, who knows?
That's true.
That's a story for another day. But again, you know, whose police car was it? I don't know. And you know, was the dash cam on? I mean, look, if anybody really cared about this, and I'm looking at you, DA's office, because you should, because you charge a woman with murder, they could have easily, if they wanted to, found every single car that was at the scene. There can't be that many. I mean, we're talking what, 2 or 3 or 4 cars, and looked at every single camera, looked at everyone's video to see if it does show them go in at that time. Okay. And that's the other thing. In order for this to make sense for McCabe,
Has to be at 6. Yeah, they're
That's
going to be
right.
able. They
That's
probably
right.
track her at that time. They probably
She's
have her
locked-
on video.
She's locked in by the Google search to being in the
time.
car. And if you put her someplace else based on her Apple Watch data or other video, then the whole thing is blown to bits.
And it seems like the defense has been tracking her on those videos. They
I'm
had
sure.
some questions about that yesterday.
Well, she goes in that house in that video,
Exactly.
the Seraph dash cam footage. She walks
Caught
in
her.
the house around 6:34, and then 2 minutes later at 6:36, there's activity on John O'Keefe's phone. There was a log.
She's
Somebody
the
sent me a
one-
log. Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, of all the witnesses from the house, putting aside Proctor, because he's a whole nother,
Yeah.
I mean, he's a whole nother level of disaster. But of these witnesses, that the civilian witnesses, or I shouldn't say that because half of them are cops, the people in the house, let's just call it that, she's the one who ought to be the most really concerned about how this is going to come out for me. I mean, she, for whatever reason, is the one who did the dumb search, who, you know, gave the statements to the cops that are demonstrably false, apparently, and all of these things. And at the end of the day, she's the one holding the bag. In other words, The people in the house who just said no one ever came in here, nothing ever happened. They didn't do any Google search about anything. There's no evidence that I did anything wrong. So the question becomes, why are you at 2 whatever in the morning looking at that? Now, the only question that I would ask, and because I don't know the answer to this, and maybe some of these people who know every fact do, is my understanding is that the Google search is like around 2:27. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
Yep, right on the dot.
And the plow guy is like 2:30,
Yes.
Yeah.
but definitely after 2:27.
Yes.
Ouch. She's got, it's not good for her.
It makes you
No.
wonder why she took it upon herself, because let's say, like based on, it could have been any one of possibly 3 potential people that had beaten up John, more than one potentially. Why, why take it upon yourself to basically, be a cleanup crew and try to do, let me do a Google search, let me do this, let me do that, let me
I
talk to
think it's the
parents.
nature of her personality. She's
Now,
Okay.
somebody that thinks she can get away with things.
Yeah.
To me, I see, again, the personalities better than I do, but my, amateur sleuth Columbo type head would say, she finds out something really bad happened. Like these meatheads just went over the top, and they told her, and they said, we didn't know what else to do. So we just kind of like, threw them in the lawn. And then what I was thinking was she just did it on her own, not to help anyone, not because she was scared. Like, oh my God, is he going to die? Like I can't believe they did this. In other words, I don't think she did it necessarily in cahoots with them as much as a curiosity. Like, is he going to die?
Right. It's very interesting.
But she's holding the bag, right? I mean, she's
Right.
the one with
That's
the Google
She
exactly
should
search.
be
right.
the one that
I mean,
turns
so-
evidence first.
When
I
you
mean,
bring up
So-
When you bring
Yeah.
up the homeowner's name, Brian, there's more information that links it back to Jen McCabe's involvement than it would be to Brian's.
Well,
Yeah.
Based on what we know.
here's the other thing that's really interesting. And again, you bring in the feds and all this. This will tell you a lot about the courage these people have and what the feds are perhaps doing or not doing. If you were a federal prosecutor and you're investigating the state prosecutors and the cops and potentially others for some kind of vast conspiracy to violate, her civil rights by framing her for a crime she didn't commit, they're not necessarily trying to solve the murder, but you can't help but, it becomes part of what they're doing. But the reality is, if they're looking to get people, presumably, Proctor is a mess part of that, but they'd want to know what happened in that house. Okay. And if you're the feds, I'm telling you, the person you're going to target to squeeze is going to be her. Okay. And the
That's right.
reason it's going to be McCabe is, one, because they're going to assume whether they should or shouldn't. She's a woman. She'll crack quicker. This guy's a cop, they're cops, they're tough guys. But the more important reason they would do that is because she's holding the bag. They have something potentially on her. I mean, if they can expose the lie about her statement, the Google search, where she was, so you'd have to think that they tried to come at her at some point. Did she speak to them? What did she say? And does she have the courage to come up and testify under oath in the state proceeding, knowing that the feds may have evidence which would suggest she's lying?
Yeah.
So she would be another prime candidate to
Oh yeah.
take the fifth, to be honest with
Her, she's a plead the fifth, definitely
Definitely.
for sure. I mean, we're all definitely putting money in the pot on that one, that's for sure.
you. Well, that's another problem, because, you could throw her up there, you ask her question by question, did you do this Google search, and was it at this time? And she takes the fifth, and then you prove up through the science, through the technological experts and whatever, that she definitely did. You expose the fact that she lied about, her interview and all of that. And then what do you think, if you're a juror, about why is this? And this just happens to be the lady who walked into the house, walked away from this scene. Why?
Well, I think the jury, I think, like a lot of us out there have been kind of occasionally impatient. We want to see the bigger characters on the stand right away. But I think the thing is too, is this is a jury I think, Mark, you kind of said this earlier. It's a jury that's really becoming orientated to this whole story. We're all here. A
Right.
lot of us know a lot about it. You know, I've been following this thing for almost a year now.
Mhm.
We're very orientated to these people. There's so many individuals, and it's extremely tough to learn this stuff. And it takes a good 3 months to really get a great feel
The
for the
jury has
expanded.
no clue who anybody
That's
is
right.
right now, the way he's doing this. Nobody.
Right. Right. So if you start with these lesser relevant people to the greater whole of this whole thing. Every time Alan Jackson and David Yannetti are cross-examining, there's seeds that they're planting in the mind of the jury. There's things that they're exposing all along the way. And
Right.
as this thing goes along, if Jen and Michael Proctor are not in the stand for 6 to 8 weeks, it's for the better. We just have to be patient because we got to get the jury educated. And the defense is going to get the jury educated on this. And the more that is, by the time, because it's like anything. If you watch a movie and it's a mystery movie and there's a little clue at the beginning of the movie, you're so new to it that by the time the movie's 2 hours in, you forget about something that happened right at the very beginning. But if you kind of learn things as you go, by the time you get to the end, you're well prepared to receive the outcome, and it stands out to you more. So
Yeah.
waiting later for this is actually better from the jury's perspective, which is the ultimate decider
They're
here.
going to
Yeah.
learn so much. Like one of the things, again, you're right. A really good breadcrumb was McCabe creeping into the house. And right now, the jury doesn't know that there were people in the house. And these are the people that the defense has mentioned. But here's where it's going to get really crazy. So she goes into the house when there's a dead body on the lawn. It is a fellow Boston police officer to her, brother-in-law, Brian Albert, whatever.
Yes.
There's a crazy scene going outside. Let me ask you this. I mean, assume she's like a straight shooter. She goes in the house. Okay. The question is why? And the real question is, why does she come out alone? What the hell is she doing in the house? What is she telling them, like, lay low until everyone's on? You're not here. I mean, was that the initial first attempt in the panic? You're not here. What is the possible explanation for her not coming out with the homeowner or anyone else when a guy they invited to their house, whether he made it or not, is dead on the lawn? And by the way, it's another cop. And we know how, cops love cops. That's understandable. That's fine. I mean, anytime, and this happens in New York too much, I'm afraid, but there's like a police funeral from a shooting or something. You know what happens? There is
Thousands of cops.
20,000 cops
Yeah.
from all over the country on a moment's notice, for that kind of stuff. And she had to tell them, right? There's something, and nobody come out. I mean, none of the kids. I mean,
and think about it too, that the homeowner had just come from New York for what? A cop's funeral. I mean, that's what him and the ATF agent had been. I mean, if they go to New York for a cop's funeral for someone they don't know, don't you think they'd come out for a cop they actually know that was supposed to go to their house?
Same department. They're both Boston.
Yeah.
Same department.
Exactly.
Well, I think
and they're both from Canton. They're both Canton guys that work in Boston. I mean, you would think that
But again, I think that's going to be I don't mean to interrupt you. I'll get off this point in 2 seconds. But I mean, again, I think this is a question for McCabe. In other words, Albert could say, no one told me, or I don't know.
Exactly.
She went into the house during this time and no one else came out. How is that possible?
And that's what the defense is showing. You can see how they're leading up to it. I heard some intel today, and I don't know how trustworthy it is, but I'm from a fairly reliable source that they think that there's going to be a couple more EMT firefighter type next week, and they're going to drop Proctor. Like Proctor's going to come out and testify next week. What do you think about that if he does testify kind of early in next week?
Well, I would tell you in a normal case where the lead investigator was not, a misogynist, civil rights violating pig and everything else, which most cases they're not, that would make sense. It would be much quicker, of course. You would think within one day they would have set the scene about finding John O'Keefe and all of that. And then the investigation takes over. I mean, because the jury question is going to be, how did we end up arresting, indicting, and prosecuting Karen Reed? So it's natural to bring in the investigator as the next wave of witnesses to say how I followed the evidence, or what they call evidence, to lead to the case. But the problem they have is they just did this really unimpressive presentation with certain witnesses who were very they weren't great. Some of them were just outright not credible. Others had real problems. Others are just irrelevant. And then you're going to follow that up with a guy, assuming he testifies and doesn't take the fifth, who is going to be cross-examined after his wonderful investigation about all the stuff that we know. And the real question is, one, it won't be boring, so that's good. But two, where are they going then?
Yeah.
Where do you go after Proctor gets just
destroyed?
Absolutely, a nuclear bomb is dropped on his head and the whole case, and there's nothing left to do. It's a pile of rubble. And then, Mr. Lally, call your next witness. And then my toes are tapping. Let's go.
How many days is that cross-examination going to last, Mark? A couple days?
Yeah. It's going to be.
Yeah.
Unless he just pleads the fifth, and then he'll be short, right?
Right.
Yep.
We had Jean make a comment. She's one of our regular listeners, an often caller. We haven't taken phone calls in a while. It's true. She says, Mike, it's Jean from Dorchester, which is how she says it. Mike, it's Jean from Dorchester. She says, please take calls. She wants to call in tonight. Do you guys want to, deal? I don't know if I want to deal with it, because once I start taking calls, the phone will ring until 4 a.m. Like, I'll be in bed tonight and they'll still be calling, because especially like a show like this, we got 1,600 plus people watching right now. But do you want to try it? Do you want to try to take a couple calls?
Anything you want. Sure.
All right. Well, we'll not yet. We will put it up though, and like maybe in a few minutes. Gene,
I wanted to there's one thing I wanted to add just a couple minutes earlier, was that the movie Goodfellas, when the feds are after Ray Liotta and his wife, when he's getting arrested, is frantically in the bathroom flushing the cocaine down the toilet. That's kind of, in a sense, you ask yourself, this is to Mark's point earlier, when she went in the home and then went out of the home and came out alone, the homeowners and a few other people are still in the house. Well, what's going on in there? What's the mood in there? And it's kind of back to that franticness that you see in the movie Goodfellas, that she's covering something up in that movie. She's trying to prevent Ray Liotta from getting bagged with a lot of cocaine. And in this situation, what's going on in that home? Are they cleaning up blood? Are they ripping, what's going on in there? And that brings it back to, did they have a concern that the cops would go in the house, and they were trying to clean things up as much as possible before they did, and then they just never did because they had enough connections? These are things I start to theorize and ponder, but there's there's going to be a mood in that house that's just, why did Jen go in the house? Was she kind of relaying information to them inside, saying, this is kind of what's going on right now, you don't need to worry, they're not real, everything's cool outside.
Well, that's the whole, that's, you just said the key point. I mean, logically, the only reason to go in the house, because everything's happening outside. She's she's allegedly helping console Karen and all, we're praying, we're really, I'm here to help. The only conceivable basis she could have to go in the house would be to tell people, you don't want to believe what's going on outside the house. She was already wearing a jacket. I mean, there's no, is she going to get Doritos? I mean, what is she doing?
All right.
Going to tell people
something's going on there. And I think the defense is on it. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she may have gone in the house to get Solo cups for the Massachusetts State Police investigation later that morning.
That was also, that was also another question tonight. Where did all that blood go? We don't know. Yeah. That's a good question. We have no idea.
At all. There's no blood on the snow. I mean, you think that if his head was gashed open because he was hit by a vehicle and his arm was gashed open, that there would have been blood all over the place. And there would have been quite, I mean, anybody that's ever got a little cut, a little bit, there's a little bit of blood that comes out of you.
Defense is going to say that the majority of the blood is on the floor of, the Albert's basement.
Might have been magic disappearing blood I mean, come on. No, there's going to be blood all over the place. I mean, it would be mixed in with that taillight. DNA would be all over.
Exactly. Especially with that gash. That's a big
be all over the vehicle.
Yep.
But then they've gone ahead.
We know there was blood on Karen Reed. I mean, so obviously, someone just posted a good comment. Some people want to see the phone calls, some people don't. One person posted some good guidelines for the phone calls tonight, because sometimes it does go off track with those. If we take calls tonight, quick question I don't want to hear your life story. I don't want to hear like a million theories. That's what a lot of times people try to take the soapbox and give us their outlandish theories. No, if we take calls tonight, name, where you're calling from, and your question. That's it. Please. We're gonna do some guidelines tonight just to keep it on track. If we do take calls, which I hope we will. What do you guys have like final thoughts or even like other thoughts you want to bring up tonight that haven't been discussed yet?
Go ahead.
Mazza Media?
Sure, yeah, I'll go ahead and just say that I just feel like Alan Jackson and David and Eddie are doing a great job at peeling the onion every single time they get a witness to talk to on that stand. They have a specific beginning, middle, and end game plan. Alan Jackson's cross-examination of Katie today was absolutely stellar. It was very well done. I think that when she kept trying to say, I don't know, or I don't recall, trying to stifle him a little bit, but he kept finding ways around that. He's taken on Alan Jackson's objections, Auntie Bev sustaining, and I think Alan Jackson put on a masterclass once again, just overcoming that and getting through to the line of questioning that he needs to ask, and was able to successfully get that. He got her to say under oath that her thoughts on this thing have evolved. I think he caught her in a few little changes of how she was answering questions. She was like, well, I know someone named Caitlin Albert. Then she started to say, well, I went to high school with her. And then later on, when Adam Lally asked her a question, she goes, yeah, we went to high school together. So her affirmation of knowing this other girl was more and more conclusive as she went on, because very early she tried to play this game that was basically being aloof to everything. And Alan Jackson just stayed in there and kept tightening the tension on that rope over and over and over and over again. And she did become visibly nervous. Even after that little 25-30 minute break, she came back with quite a bit of arrogance, I felt. And then once Alan Jackson started to go to work with the questions, it really started to kind of rattle her quite a bit. And I think she was really losing track of how she had answered early questions. She had a lot of stalling from time to time, where she was like, I'm not sure she was remembering how to answer the question. I think she was trying to remember how she may have answered the question that was asked in a little bit of a different format at an earlier time. And even Turtle Boy during his live today had called attention to the fact that she had answered a question asked by Lally differently and with more affirmation than she had to Alan Jackson earlier during his initial first passing of cross-examination. So the defense is doing their job. They're getting the point across. And even though everything may not always be a home run, it may be a base hit, a double, or a triple, which is adding up. They're adding up their case towards creating reasonable doubt to get the not guilty verdict, and they're doing a stellar job of that. And it's coming along. There have been some witnesses that maybe aren't as juicy in terms of them asking questions, but there's ones that they're really honing in on. I thought Alan Jackson kept Katie on the stand for a very good amount of time today. It was certainly not too little, and I thought he asked a thorough amount of questions, and he got things on the record, and that's the most important part. So I defer back my time.
Excellent. And I also want to throw this up here. I think we all already answered this from Dag Dabbit, but thank you so much for the donation. He says, does Mark think jurors will see Karen negatively after hearing she told the ambulance driver she couldn't raise the kids? I mean, I think we did answer that, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but they could also turn that against the DA because it seems like a cheap shot. And I think that their argument is inconsistent for the simple reason they're painting her out as running around saying, "Oh my God, is he dead? Is he dead?" She clearly tried CPR. She's upset. She's distraught. She's crying. And then she says, what about the kids? What am I going to do? Might some people find that distasteful in the moment? I don't know, but they did a nice job of setting it up by having them say that she was all over the place and she was upset. So I don't think it can possibly move the needle forward for them because it doesn't add anything relevant. I mean, they're not going to convict her because she said, who's going to take care of these kids, which are not her own. And, the kids, I mean, those poor kids, what they've been through for years, I guess now, but in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't do anything. And it just kind of leads to my overall thought, which is I a week later, I don't know what they're doing. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, they they seem to think that the only way that to try a case is to call every single human being on the planet who knows something, even if I have 30 of the same people who saw the same thing. And you don't need to do that. I mean, they could be shortening this. They could be moving on. I don't understand again why the car came in out of left field. I mean, there's no flow here. It's just like throwing this, throwing that, and let's take a field trip, and then we'll come back and call some more EMTs. Yay, another day of EMTs. And if they are now moving into the cops, that's not going to be good and smooth sailing. And they have to think about these kinds of things. On what basis do they think that there's reasonable doubt here? I mean, this should have been their strongest week. They should have laid the foundation, as we talked about the other day, with a series of witnesses who we would call admission witnesses. She admitted she did it. And do you really think that's what the credible evidence shows?
Not now. And it's funny when you bring up about the kids. I agree with what you said too. Like, it shows that she was thinking about those kids. And someone else noted today in the comments just now that that's probably why the defense also brought up that she has MS.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we're going to play this game of, we're going to portray her, if you're the DA, as awful and try to make her look terrible, then the defense properly introduces a very sympathetic fact, which they could also argue in summation might be another reason why she would say, how am I going to handle these kids? I mean, if there's a physical issue, I mean, 2 young kids that lost their parents or, tragically, and then their uncle, who's their caretaker, tragically, and, they're left with her and she's got all of her issues that she's dealing with. So in a moment of basically having a breakdown, an understandable breakdown, a panic attack, essentially, she says, oh my God, who's going to take care of the kids? Is this really a big deal?
Yeah, no,
I don't think so.
No, I think it's someone that actually cares about those kids. I think that's all it shows. It's like she was worried about them.
I also think if this is what you're showing the jury, as opposed to, I don't know, proof that she mowed the guy down, jurors will wonder, where's the evidence? Why am I hearing more of the same, but you're not giving us any evidence? I mean, at some point, they're going to have to bring forth real evidence that shows she did anything. At this point, there's nothing. Nothing.
All right, we got the phone number up, 978-560-3155. I think the system's set up. You know how it works if you've been listening to the show. Sometimes it doesn't work right away, so we have to mess with the Bluetooth. But it is set up. It should work if Gene or anybody else wants to call in. We got the phone number on the screen right there, 978-560-3155. It usually takes a minute or two for you guys to catch up on it. But give us a call. Here we go. That was quick. I knew that would happen. And it's so funny. Once the calls come in, you're going to get a busy signal now because I don't like the call waiting buzzing going on. So if you hear the busy signal, that means someone else is on the line. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Well, Mike, it's weird that I'm the first caller, Gene from Dorchester.
It's not weird. You got the number on speed dial. You were ready to go.
I do. I had the phone open, ready to hit call.
I knew it.
Well,
good to hear your
first I
voice,
want to
Gene.
say,
It's good to hear your voice.
It's good to hear you. And like, you better take phone calls because this is my life. And I have questions too.
All right. I bet you're going to make me an offer I can't refuse. Go ahead.
Don't upset Jane, Mike.
She's from Dorchester.
I love, hi, Mazda, hi, Mike, and hi, Mark.
Hi, Jane.
How are you?
The triple threat, the triple threat ends right here. So my question is for Mark. Mark, what the hell? Doesn't Bev have somebody above her? I mean, it's clear that she is just she's so rude to Karen and her attorneys and nasty, and she doesn't like them. She wants to punch them in the face. She doesn't let them do nothing. She's constantly siding with the DA. I don't understand it. Who is not watching that should be, and why ain't they doing anything about it? It just seems like this is just, the whole thing is set up for one big, huge failure, and she's part of it. And
Well,
it drives me nuts.
There, in terms of what can you do about it? Nothing. I mean, there's a jury trial that started, and they're not going to blow up a jury trial because the judge appears to be almost like an unhappy person. I forget what the funny words we used the other night, like persistently, whatever it was. I can't remember, but you know, there are higher judges, and there are administrative judges and people lob complaints and this and that, but it's not going to stop this trial. I mean, if enough people complained after, and the people thought that she was doing something wrong, they would do something. But you know, the other problem is you have to remember this is a trial that is unique because people are watching. Most trials, nobody watches, nobody cares, and the first question they'd want to know, is she like this in other cases? I don't know. You know, is she always just kind of snippy and exasperated and breathing heavy and sighing and doing these things? So I don't know why she got assigned this case. But in terms of what can you do now? Nothing. If you're the lawyers, you do what they're doing. You deal with it. You continue to be respectful in the presence of the jury, and you stay focused, and you continue to slice and dice the case up into nothing. So it as lawyers, it happens more than you think. You know, there's many cranky judges who you don't like. You just have to get through it. There's no remedy. You're not going to have her moved in the middle of a trial unless there's an incident. I mean, if there was an incident, potentially that could lead to a mistrial. But by incident, I mean a full-fledged shouting match in the presence of the jury where she says, "I hate you lawyers, and I think your client's guilty." I mean, you know, that's not going to happen. So if it's just persistent misery and nastiness, if that's what it is, they just have to get through it. Not the answer you wanted, I know. Oh, you're muted again.
Am I muted?
Mm-hmm. You just came off. Now you're muted again.
It's weird.
Now you're good.
Okay. I'm sorry, Gene. You were getting a lot of feedback. I don't know what's going on there. Could you hear that feedback coming in when she was on? Am I muted?
No, you're good.
You're on.
You're on.
Yeah, you heard the feedback. I hope she liked the call. We got to take a next call. If you're calling, turn off your computer. That's usually the feedback coming in. Hey, who's on the line? Hi, you're on the show. What's your name and what's your question? Hey, Joe.
We can't hear the caller, Mike.
Oh, hold on, caller. You're not turned on. Hold on one second. All right, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, it's Joe from Syracuse, New York. Just wanted to commend you, Mike, for having Mark on the past few nights. I've been enjoying his commentary. You knocked it out of the park. I can forgive him for being a Boston fan. Knicks have moved on. So
if it makes you feel better, I went to Syracuse for law school. So go dinosaur.
Good. Most of my family. Well, my grandfather was a New York State Supreme Court justice for almost 30 years. My cousin's on the Supreme Court right now, and
in Onondaga,
you would know him in the 5th Judicial. What's that?
I said in Onondaga County.
Yes, well, the 5th Judicial, which covers Onondaga, Oneida, Madison.
Right.
John Murad was my grandfather.
What was his name?
But John Murad,
Okay.
my cousin, well, I don't know if I should say his name. He's on there now, and he actually was a congressman, but he got appointed to the judgeship by the governor. But anyways, I wanted to just give my quick opinion here and see what you guys think. I don't want to take up too much of your time. As I've been following the case, it's obvious that this case is a mess. But I tried to go into it saying I'm gonna be as unbiased as I can. I'm gonna watch this thing. And as we know, it's the prosecution's case right now. Everything right now should be pointing me to, she committed a crime.
Yep.
First off, I haven't even seen a crime really other than opening statements. I haven't even seen a crime alleged yet. But
No, they've
what I'm
offered
thinking in my head,
other than she said I hit him, whatever that means. They haven't even put context into what that might mean.
right, which is where I was going to go. What they've proven to me so far, and again, we got a long ways to go, but so far to me, with even the prosecution's own case, I'm saying to myself, there's three things out there. You got one extreme is people think that they killed him in cold blood in the house, moved his body out to the front lawn, and all this stuff ensued. And then you got the other side, which was, she hit him on purpose, backwards, driving 26 miles per hour in the snow. That's the other extreme. And I've tried to look at both sides, and I said, okay, if she did that, nothing so far, even the prosecution's case shows me, at worst case scenario, she accidentally hit him and didn't even know. It still may not know. Okay, possible. And then I said, well, if they killed him in the house, you got a house full of law enforcement officers, people that obviously are very close. I've seen enough cases in my life. If you're willing to move a body, why are you going to move it right to your own front lawn? You're going to get rid of it. It's nighttime. No one's up. It's snowing out. Go put it in a room. You're going to get rid of the thing. You're not going to put it on the front lawn. So I'm saying, what really happened? And then as I'm watching this now, and I'm watching the body cam footage and the reactions of these people, and this is just my opinion, I'll hang up after this and let you guys see if you agree with me or disagree. But I'm saying, I think I know what happened. There was a fight. He did get in the house, but he wasn't totally incapacitated yet. He either walked out or they kicked him out. They figured, forget him. They're mad at him anyways. He's going to call Karen for a ride or he's going to walk home. He was hurt far worse than either he or they thought. And he passed out as he's walking down the street on the curb, and he ended up dying there. So when they found him in the morning, Jen's reaction to me and then running in the house and making the call says she knew right away, oh my God, this is now a homicide. That fight last night, he died from those injuries.
Thank you
He
for calling.
never made it there.
Thank you for calling in, Joe.
No
Very
problem.
much appreciate it. He broke the rules. That's the last call tonight. You guys want to respond?
Go ahead.
Baza.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was ever a reaction that they were concerned about him potentially dying. They knew that he had been beaten up to a certain point, an extent that he was almost certainly probably going to die, and he'd be weakened enough and not have enough clothing on him to freeze to death almost undoubtedly. And over the night they just took the chance of his body ended up being found. But there was at least a several hours of window time there for them to just have him out there with almost no traffic coming by. Because another thing is it's in the middle of the morning, and furthermore, it's snowing out. And there's a snowstorm essentially, rolling in here, and there's not going to be much traffic. And the only people that would be out there, plow drivers.
I mean, I suppose if the dastardly facts were true that he was killed in the house and dumped, that it's a fair question to say what kind of idiot would dump him on your front lawn. And
Agreed.
I guess two thoughts that come to mind. Number one, not a good night for a drive. And you don't want to get pulled over when, there might be a body in the car. Number two, if you accept that these are not maybe the brightest people in the world and it's a little bit of panic and everything, if he gets dumped where he is, given what you said earlier, which is that, they knew he was kind of at the curb, then it's not inconceivable that would support the story that they kind of sort of came up with later, which is he never made it in the house. And,
Right.
they know he's drunk or whatever, and he got hit by a car. I mean, it doesn't even have to be her at that point. He got hit by a car, hit by a plow. But one of the things that Joe raised, which is interesting, which is where you, as the defense, you have to be real careful. You know, they're all in on, you know, they did this in the house, which is fine, but you want to make sure that this is being done in the context of reasonable doubt, not assuming a burden that you're not obligated to do and making the jury pick a story and which one is more believable. And I obviously assume that these guys know how to do it, but it's critical that they not go out with the intent of proving this is what happened to O'Keefe. The only thing they should be proving is your case against her is such a joke. There is so much reasonable doubt, and it's very plausible that this is what happened with O'Keefe.
Exactly.
And if you can't decipher and literally eliminate that and all these other problems, then she's not guilty. And they have to focus the jurors the same way when you see online. A lot of people say, you know, they're going to, you know, she's going to be proven innocent. No, she's not. She's going to be found guilty or not guilty. And in some ways, it's a cruel thing, but the law doesn't care about innocence. They care about burdens of proof. That, you know, you're brought to trial by the prosecution. It's their burden to prove you guilty. If you're found not guilty, that is not a blessing of actual innocence. It means you're not guilty, which to some people could mean you're probably guilty. I'm not saying that's her. I'm kind of leaning, as I told you the other day, towards, I think, actual innocence here. But, you know, it doesn't have to be the case. You know, a guilty person should be acquitted if there are still questions. So, you know, just the way it gets phrased, like which story to believe, that's not the way the defense wants this framed.
I would say too, is that they're based on where his body gets dumped. They have to take into account a few different things. They know for a fact that Karen dropped them off. They know that they were at the waterfall earlier in the night, but they're also locked into something else. They're locked into the fact that this man's body is brutalized. So they couldn't just like say, take him across the street and dump him on the guy across the street's lawn or a couple houses down. They'd have to put it somewhere within the vicinity where a lot of cars were parking that night so they could dump it, because they had to have someone that basically was the fall person, which in this particular, or Patsy, as Mark likes to say, in this particular situation, because they had to somehow explain away the cuts on the arms, the bruises to the eyes, the slide. And this was the only thing they could possibly think of, was to say, well, let's just dump, there's a house party here. We can't deny that. Let's just dump them on the thing, say he never came in the house, and say that Karen must, you know, if suggest that Karen must have hit him and let that kind of run its course. And then Michael Proctor basically sprinkled sugar on it in the form of 45 pieces of taillight that did or did not exist, but were certainly on the report. And
Yeah,
a couple of pictures of taillight.
and now if you're the DA, or I should say a DA, who's, even they will think about this. I mean, the argument for them is going to be, you know, obviously this is all nonsense. It's all wild conspiracy, tinfoil hat stuff. But if they want to try to really get people to focus from their standpoint, what a prosecutor is going to say, why would they do that to her? I mean, how sick would these people have to be? What's their beef with her? Why are they doing her and literally putting whatever crime falls on her? And ultimately it turned out to be murder. But, you know, I know she's the outsider. That's true. You know, her relationships with these people from that house are tangential at best, I suppose. But are they really that sick, twisted, and awful that they would just do her like that? I mean, that's what the DA would say. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And what they're going to say is that, you know, the defense didn't offer any reason. Now, it'll be interesting to see whether they do or they don't. But, you know, again, you never have to show a reason why somebody does something, but it would be helpful to do so to make it more credible and reliable. And I wonder if the defense has any real credible evidence of offering a reason why they did it. I mean, I think there's a lot of breadcrumbs for it happened, or certainly they all engaged in really mysterious conduct, deleting, Googling, you know, all that stuff.
Right.
But
I wonder if the feds know, and I wonder if the defense.
I don't know,
It's
but that's
interesting.
kind of, I mean, not that I'm overly concerned with what the defense is doing, because I mean, she's getting acquitted. Okay. Like, she's getting acquitted, but I would still want to know, do they have ammunition that would suggest this is why? And if they have that, I mean, that's captivating. And then people can wrap a reason around it. And then, you know, you're solving the case, even though you don't have to.
Mm. I think it's this too. I think what Olivia is saying. The reason I hung up kind of quickly on Joe is we did have a time limit, and I said I didn't want to hear about your theories. You came up with a new theory. It just everyone's trying to solve this thing, but we're just trying to talk about what's going on in the actual court, not some theory that's never going to get brought up. Olivia now says it's not about framing Karen Reed, it's about protecting themselves. They took things too far, and it was so they could avoid going to prison. All about protecting the family, protecting themselves.
Totally agree. But again, that's a good answer. But what the DA will say is, are they that sick and twisted that this is somebody who is not a stranger? It's not a strong relationship, but you know, they do know who she is. She came to their house or almost came to her house. Are we going to turn on a dime and just say, because somebody in that house did something stupid, that we're going to immediately launch a conspiracy to make it look like she did? And the answer may very well be yes. And there seems to be evidence of these kinds of things. But what the DA will ask, I'm not certainly trying to make their argument or defend their position, but they're going to try to focus on why. If any of this would have happened, why would they do it? And that may very well be the best answer, that it's all about, you know, the Alberts of Canton. I get it. You know, they are who they are. They're powerful people. Again, I would argue, if I were the defense, it's incestuous in some sense, that world that they're all in. And she is an outsider, and she was an easy patsy, and it had to be her for the simple reason there was nobody else.
Yeah, I think exactly what's been mentioned earlier too. Like they plan to blame it on the plow driver, but they found out Karen cracked her taillight, so they figured that she was perfect. She's perfect to blame it on, and she's an outsider.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we got another question from Leah Baker. She sent $19.99. Thank you so much for the donation, Leah. She said, explain vomit in the boxers. Head trauma causes convulsions. Did they hit Officer John O'Keefe? Did they set him up so he didn't choke on his vomit? She wants us to explain that. I don't know how to. I think
I'm not qualified to answer that.
I'm not either.
Medical. I mean, that's something that's an interesting question. That, I mean, from a lawyer's perspective, when you think about these things, you would call the expert and say, you know, talk to me about this. But just as a lawyer, I wouldn't know without asking a medical person what that might do. I mean, certainly the vomit in his boxers, I will agree with you, as a matter of logic and inference, would be from coming out of his mouth, sitting up, and it lands on his lap. But as far as the other stuff, I wouldn't know.
I wouldn't either. I mean, it kind of makes sense that he might have been sitting up, but who the heck knows? I mean, it's just one of those weird things. What do you got? Anything, Mazza?
Yeah, just I don't know. It's just, this is so wild. You know what I mean? It's just this whole thing is just so wild from top. You know, I sat there earlier today and I was just thinking about this a moment ago about Karen today when she's staring a hole at Katie in court. And I want to just bring it back to this for a moment if I could. And when you look at this whole thing from the way she was, you know, the people in the house eventually dumping this all on her, and then you hear cross-examinations from certain people, and you just start to say, like, there's more people involved here. And I just thought of a quote from the movie JFK from Donald Sutherland's character. And he says, like Caesar, JFK is surrounded by enemies and something's underway, but it has no face, and yet everybody in the loop knows. And what that basically means is that she's being surrounded by wolves, basically, and they're out to take her out. And she doesn't know what's happening, and there's all these people involved in it that she doesn't even know. And you see her today just looking at her pinpoint. She's like, this is another person that was in on this. And it doesn't have to be in a big way, but in a small way. And, you know, it's somehow, you know, if she goes up there and testifies, I heard her say, I hit him. She's ultimately acting against Karen in her testimony. And she's saying something that Karen believes in her mind never said. And she's seeing this happen. And it's just, you know, I look at that and it's just, I see Karen with that conviction in her eyes again when she looks at her, and she just knows. It's like when she turned around to Jen in court at one of those hearings a couple of weeks ago and says, you're a liar. You know, and I felt that way again today. I got those same vibes from Karen where she looked at her and said, you're a liar. And it's just, there's more people that have been involved. You know, they like to say on the other side, we're conspiracy theorists. We think that there's 30, 40 people involved. But here's the thing. You know, it all comes back to one thing. If all these people heard her say that I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, why didn't you not tell the cops? Why would you not tell the police that, oh, by the way, I heard her say this? And it just goes back to that point where this isn't a conspiracy because we want it to be. It's not a cover up. Really, it's a cover up, not a conspiracy. It's not a cover up because we want it to be. It's not a cover up because we're a bunch of conspiracy theorist nut jobs. It's a cover up because, like I said, I could be ducking about anything. I could be playing video games and watching movies right now, or going to the gym and working out, and not be talking about this case if I didn't want to. I'm here because I have an interest in this, and I have an interest in this because this thing stood out like a sore thumb to me. And there's so much crazy stuff that's captivated me for about a year now, and I just can't lose interest in this. It just constantly brings me back to the fact that this is not something that I chose. It's something it's the irresistible force that you just can't not pay attention to. And I'm here because I wholeheartedly believe that something's amiss here and there's a cover up here. And I don't like the fact that I'm seeing a woman who I believe to be factually innocent, who I think is a very great woman. And I'm seeing these people circle her like sharks in a pack of wolves. And how can I not stand up and say anything?
I look at it, you know, again, I can't help myself. I mean, when I learned about this, I thought this was an interesting thing. And as I read the Boston Globe mostly for sports, but, it was a big thing locally. Okay, whatever. And it went on and on. And then I know the whole Turtle Boy stuff, and this got really interesting. And then I started, I don't know, a month or two looking at this more as a lawyer, as opposed to just a spectator at how crazy this is. And for someone like me, I can't help but look at it through that lens, and I just continue to go back to the prosecutor and say, how did they make this decision based on the evidence? And this DA's office is just, it's crazy. I mean, I don't want to tell war stories or make comparisons that nobody wants to listen to, but I think this is really interesting. The way they do this in the Manhattan DA's office, for example, and this is what would have happened. They have a thing. Now, I understand there's more horrible crime pound for pound in New York City than Canton. I get it. But there is an assistant district attorney on call 24 hours a day, anytime there's a suspicious death. They call it homicide call. And the way it works is when the detectives go out, or even the local cops, they would call the lieutenants, the important people, and say, there is a dead body, lying here. And it's suspicious in the sense it's not natural. I mean, he's clothed with one shoe, with trauma, lying on a lawn with no obvious manner or cause of death apparent. That's suspicious. By the way, we found out he's a Boston police officer. They would call the ADA on call, who would go to the crime scene immediately. There would be an assistant district attorney out there in a winter coat with the cops, and they would be running point on what we're doing. Okay. They would be saying, who's in the house? Who's doing this? Who's looking for search warrants? Have we put the witnesses over here? What do we have the video? And here's the sad, sick part. If that office had anything even remotely close to this, odds are they go in the house, they talk to people, they learn something, they get search warrants. And you know what? What if they went down there and there was a pool of blood? I don't know, but they would have talked to all these people. But the other thing they would have done, they would have talked to Karen if any of this was true. Okay. Or the statements, not that the statements themselves were true, but that she said, I hit him. And you know what they would have determined or not determined pretty quickly whether that had any credibility. And what they would have done, and I'm talking within 24 to 48 hours, guys, they would have, ma'am, tell us what you mean. And then they would determine whether, she's in custody or not, and whether her Miranda rights kick in and all that. Let's assume she's not, because they don't want that. Where's your car? They would have found her car, and they would have said, all right, let's be honest. That would be a kind of moment of concern. She said, I hit him. Her car has damage. They would look for video right away. Where does she live? And they would have all this within a couple of days. They would have, again, detectives, not Officer Saraf and Chief Wiggum and all of these types. They'd get real cops doing stuff who are curious about police work, interview everyone, and they would determine pretty quickly that's probably not what didn't do this. Okay. And they would have an autopsy and they would talk to the medical examiner and say, what do you see? They wouldn't tell them to write, make sure you put in not from a fight, that kind of nonsense. But they would say, does this make sense? And if the medical examiner were to say, that doesn't make sense, they're never arresting her. But do they arrest other people? I don't know. But this was botched from the beginning. I mean, if Lally has proven anything, okay, in the first week of this trial, what he's proven is, I hope none of you good people are ever crime victims in Canton. Okay.
Exactly.
If you're looking to get justice and accountability, because what they did as a matter of police work and everything else, it's just pathetic. And that's going to kill them in summation. And you can be sure they're going to say things like that.
And a question, someone said, how far is Canton outside of Boston? I believe it's like 10, 15 miles, right?
Yeah, it's not isolated at all. I mean, it's Dunkin' Donuts is in Canton, isn't it? I mean, this is, I mean, you know.
I'd say it's a suburban enclave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not far.
Yeah, not far. Someone brought up Chief Wiggum tonight.
No,
I
can't resist.
think he's going to be a big part of the story
Oh my
eventually.
God.
Chief
Can you
Wiggum.
Yeah,
Can
20
you
miles
imagine-
from Boston.
Can you imagine when this guy says, I was just taking a drive, the snow was melting, it was just a beautiful day in the town, and wouldn't you know it, holy shit, there it is. There's the OJ glove right there on the front lawn. Crazy.
He's got a bad eyesight at night, apparently, and that's what we found out at his retirement party when he was driving the boat with all the drunk cops on it with guns. They told some stories at his retirement party.
Oh God, is that the video somebody sent me where Morrissey was bragging about kicking back and just getting wasted with him?
Well, he gave him, you know what Morrissey gave Chief Wiggum at his retirement party?
Yeah, he gave him like a bottle of scotch or something.
No,
right?
beer
Right.
and
Oh,
koozies, like high end,
That's
like
right.
beer koozies with a couple cans of beer. It's like,
God.
that's
And
all
this-
they talked about too. Is like, we like to drink.
Oh, Morrissey's a regular at the tavern in Quincy on Hancock Street.
Yeah,
Well,
they
he
all
looks
have that
like
in
the kind of
common. They
guy
like
who
to
likes a bar stool. That's for sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. God.
Meatball Morrissey.
Oh.
I would love to see Berkowitz on the stand. I hope he gets Chief Wiggum. I'd love to see him.
First
I
of all,
mean,
how's your
yeah,
retirement,
let's-
sir? And
let's-
second of all,
let's go around. Who would you most like to see cross-examined right now? Like Proctor, Jen McCabe, Berkowitz. Who do you think's like the must-see TV on this?
it's a tie for Jen and Proctor's a dead tie because they're two parts to the whole. So they're both like they're number one and A. They're both of them. Yeah.
To me, it's McCabe in a landslide, and I'll tell you why. Proctor is, it's pathetic. It's wave the white flag, stop the fight. The text messages are what they are. There's nothing he can do. But, she's going to get, assuming she's willing to testify and, not evade questions. The cross-examination of her is going to take a lot of skill. She's probably going to, try to weasel her way out. But there's a lot of damning things that she did. And I think I would be most interested to see her more than anyone. Although, the blood sport of Proctor obviously is must-watch TV too. And that will probably be the most, tense in the courtroom because, cops obviously know how to handle themselves too, but he's got so much on him. He may just fold. You may find him to be a sheepish loser who's just, I'm done and disgraced and I have no fight left in me. But I get the impression from what I hear that she's got a lot of fight and spunk in her and looking for a battle.
Yeah. Other people had noticed Morrissey is another one that they brought up. They would like to see on the stand, and Higgins.
The ATF agent?
Yes.
Yeah. It seemed like Jen got more picks in the comments as well. But
Yeah, Jen got the most by far, and Proctor was probably number 2.
I know between the two of them, even though I said equal and same, I'd rather see Jen than Proctor in that order just from a defense strategy. just because her actions take place before his actions, allegedly.
Yeah, although it's interesting though, again, the way they've set this up, even though it's confusing and boring, is it does seem logical to me that they really need to have an investigator because they've done nothing to even remotely link her. And I don't know how you can't go another 2 or 3 or 4 days without telling the jury, here's the crime, here's why she did it, here's how she did it, and here's how we're going to prove her guilty. I mean, they're really playing with fire and just boring everyone to death and doing it the way they're doing it. So to me, if I were them at this point, assuming Proctor didn't have all his problems, I would bring him in and I would work backwards and explain how we solve this. In other words,
Mhm.
he came to learn that all these people were what we're complaining about. Nobody did anything about all these statements. So he said, I wanted to go see her car. And oh my God, I saw the taillight. And then we got a warrant and seized it. And oh my God, there was glass. And then we went back and found video and he's holding a glass and, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I like that a lot, Mark. That's a great concept. I think
It
that
is.
actually makes
The
sense.
problem-
Yeah, because you go into the
Except the problem is the cop is just I'm speechless. I mean, he's so bad and going to get destroyed, and it's going to have such credibility problems that normally you would say that's the way to do it, but he is. Oh,
Adam Lally said several months ago at one of the hearings that there's absolutely no connection between the Proctors and the Alberts. However, shortly after that, the 2014 or whatever it was, wedding footage came out and clearly showed them, as Alan Jackson once said, they weren't together. They weren't both attending a wedding together. They were in the same wedding party, members of each family. So it's when the jury starts hearing things like that, when Alan Jackson drops that in court.
it's yeah, and of course the first part of that statement, which the jury wouldn't hear, is the even more disturbing part. I mean, and it calls into question when he tells you today, I don't know about these messages, Judge. I got sandbagged. They can't use these pictures. If he's misspoken or lying, whichever it is about that. I mean, why would he make that statement if he doesn't know? Unless he was told that and they lied to him. But, those are things, by the way, they could cross-examine those witnesses. I mean, they're not going to cross-examine Lally, obviously, but they could certainly say, did there ever come a time that you told him da 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 da, and it's not true, and see where that goes. Yep, silence.
Oh, Mike,
Keep
you on
going.
mute again?
What do we expect on Monday? Thank you. How many times have I it's like become a habit. It's ridiculous. I don't want to interrupt you guys though. I just make sure I'm coughing a lot lately. It's the weather. They got the bad weather.
The weather transition has not been easy.
Yeah.
I know a few people are getting sick because the pollen count's starting to go up.
And my
all
voice
that.
just starts like making noises. I see it on the meter here. Just hit mute and I forget.
Right. Right.
But
So,
what do
I
you
mean,
what do you guys think on Monday? What do we expect next week?
yeah, I'll go right ahead and say that I think you're going to see more of the first responding, cross-examine, being questioned by Lally and the cross-examinations going there. And then beyond that, your guess is as good as mine in terms of, I don't know what direction we'll see that happen, but it'll be interesting to see if Proctor is called, again, being a first responder, well, not a first responder, but a, someone that was in charge of the lead investigator. So I guess it would make sense that if they interviewed firefighters, paramedics, police, that the lead investigator, like I think Mark was alluding to this earlier, would be questioned sooner rather than later as well. So we'll see how that goes. But I think, yeah, right now it's looking like a lot of first responders. And then from that point, where they go from there, that will be determined. But I don't have a real guess at this point because
Is Proctor the only police officer capable of testifying with firsthand knowledge, no hearsay that, someone told me this, who can testify to the seizure of the vehicle and discovering the glass and the other things that they will claim are somehow significant? I mean, is there another way where they can backdoor them?
The glass, not the glass, I think came in through the Canton police,
Okay.
but the
footage,
the fragments were the CERT team. So they have other state police, I think, that could testify about that. As far as the towing of the car, I don't know. I don't know if was Buchanan there. I don't know.
I can't recall. Olivia's in the comments. She might be able to give us
Yeah.
a
But
phone a
there's
friend
also
moment
the
here.
timeline where he really had access to the car for like 2 more, which
And the
could
Canton police footage was missing
I
for
think that's going to
45
be the
minutes.
tough part for them.
It is. Yeah.
You know, the CERT team, they can say the state police. Olivia said that too. Yeah. Buchanan could also too.
Okay.
I
There we
think
go.
that he may be the one that takes the stand. We'll see. I mean, it'd be interesting. Is it going to be Proctor or Buchanan?
Well, I mean, look, if they wanted to try to run an end around, assuming they have other cops that were with him who can literally introduce the evidence and they say, okay, we won't call Proctor, you know, we'll get around that. The problem they're going to have is a couple things. Number one, the optics. We're not calling the case investigator because he's terrible. And frankly, you know, according to the defense, he's part of the cover up. But the problem they have is that at a trial, there's another side who gets to do things. And Proctor did things. He's going to get called as a defense witness. It's going to support, you know, what they're alleging. And even if other cops are capable as DA witnesses of establishing certain things, they're going to establish that Proctor was the guy in charge. And this was his investigation. Albert was his friend. All of this, you know, he's the one who went through the phone, all of that. So he's still going to get called. And then the other issue is it's not inconceivable that the defense wants to call Proctor to impeach other prosecution witnesses because he interviewed so many of them. And so he's not getting out of this. And the DA has to make a difficult decision about, do we try to avoid him in our case in chief, get the evidence in through other people, and take the obvious hit about, you know, why are we calling, meaning the defense? You know, you heard from the lead investigator from us. You heard from the name of the female, her name escapes me, from the state police, who we talked about earlier with McCabe. You know, you heard from her through us. The defense is going to say
Kathleen,
Prince, was it Prince?
Kathleen
Yes,
Prince.
that's
Yeah.
her name. Yep.
So what, I mean, they're going to tell the jury. You ever wonder why we're the ones calling the witnesses who did the investigation? And does that like matter in terms of what we're telling you?
So yeah, it's so funny because they, you know, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't.
I mean, if
Seems
the
like
DA is hiding critical witnesses from them, I mean, I hate to do this, guys, but I go back 5 steps and say, how the hell did they ever get past first base? Never mind trying to hit a home run. This is ridiculous. Like they're screwed. They have no path to win here. None. I don't understand these people online who think that this is open and shut, and
right.
it makes no sense.
Olivia's pretty much the question we've been talking about. She said, if the prosecution doesn't call Proctor and the defense ends up calling him, how will they be limited in their questioning as they wouldn't be cross-examining
Excellent
him?
question. So ordinarily when that happens, yes, that would flip the script and you couldn't cross, which means really you can't lead. And I mean, that's the big problem. You can't ask leading questions on direct. However, he is the case detective. He gathered all the evidence and whatnot. And so you would be telling or arguing to the judge, and I know what you're going to say next. What about the judge? You would arguing that we ought to be able to treat him right out of the gate as a hostile witness, which is actually a legal term of art. I don't mean that even just like TV. It's a hostile witness in a legal sense, meaning that although we are the ones calling the witness, that we ought to be able to cross-examine on direct and just jump into cross. A lot of judges in a case like this might allow that, but if they didn't, then you would have to direct them. And then depending on how mealy-mouthed he is, then you would ask permission, and hopefully they would be able to cross him. But either way, he's going to be called, and you know, he's going to get grilled by them, whether they do it on direct or cross. But I would assume they'll, even if he's their witness, they'll be leading him. They're not going to have to do it the way that everybody likes to hear the what if anything that you hear all day.
Interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see if they call Proctor next week as a witness for the prosecution, or we have to wait for the defense like we've been talking about. What are your final thoughts tonight? We'll start with Mazza Media.
It's I'm glad this thing's underway. I'm glad that this is just underway now and that they're starting to just get to cross-examine certain individuals and start to put this together. It's like anything in life. I just want to see Karen Reed free of this, and right now the only way to get her free of this is to go right into the trenches of the trial and just have the defense fight their way through for her, and just get this over and done with in her life. She deserves to have an opportunity to move on, and she's been captive to this for over 2 years now, and she will be for the next several weeks. You can tell it's tough for her to deal with. All these people are talking about things that are going to have an impact on your life, and a jury that's there. They're going to decide your fate. And I'm just for her. I'm just I just want to see her free of this, and that's really to me, regardless of any other things that happen, other scenarios that play out. I want Karen Reed to be free of this. And I look forward to the day that there's a not guilty verdict released by the jury, or the feds intervene and put a stop to this thing and get Karen's freedom back, because this is just something that's been tying her up for a long time. She looks great, and her lawyer, the defense team all look great, all dressed up, fixed up. When they walk into court, they look impressive, but it's a lot to get geared up for day in and day out. For them to, and Karen, for her emotionally, physically, just everything. It's a lot to go through, and it's a lot to hear people talk about you and many of our opinions, as well as Karen. First and foremost, we're just tired of hearing people just not tell the truth or telling white lies left and right. And quite frankly, all of us as a collective movement behind Karen Reed are sick and tired of it, and we want to see the truth come out. And ultimately, we want to see Karen a free woman. And those are my final thoughts tonight.
Well said, friend. Thank you very much, Mazza Media.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
And what
just to follow up on that real quick before, obviously seeing people in her position and dealing with them frequently behind the scenes, it's horrible. And I don't know her or anyone involved in this, but I can tell you just based on experience, it's hell. I mean, what she's going through, and it's even worse when it's publicized. I mean, everywhere you go, there's people pointing at you, because there's notoriety with it. And every day, people in her position are thinking, oh my God, am I going to prison for the rest of my life? It's impossible not to think like that from time to time. You sit through a grueling trial, which takes over your life. Every day you feel it's just a nightmare, and it's like Groundhog Day repeating itself. And so, yeah, what someone like her is going through is beyond comprehension. And on top of the fact, she lost her boyfriend. Like,
Right.
I mean, it's not just like she's accused of killing someone.
Right.
Her boyfriend is dead. And if you were being smeared for killing him when you tried to save him, I mean, not futilely. I mean, that was all a desperate attempt to save him, but it's just the ultimate cruelty if you think about it. I'm being falsely accused, most likely, of killing my boyfriend, and they're going to try to send me away to prison after smearing me and saying all these bad things about me, to the point where they're calling witnesses who are saying nothing other than, she's making snarky comments, and we're sitting in judgment of her. I saw one of these commentators, I think it was that FBI woman that nobody wants to talk about, last week, was commenting on her clothes and for lack of a better term, slut shaming her for what she was wearing, saying if she wears that to court in front of a jury, this is because she was wearing boots or something. And it got to the point where, they're slamming her for how she's dressing in court. So yeah, everything you just said is terrible. But for my own, I go back to, this thing is a train wreck. And I just when is it going to go over the cliff? Because every witness who's left who ought to have important evidence, think about it. They're all going to be, according to the defense, people who are associated with this cover up, frame job, whatever. I mean, Proctor or the state police by extension are going to be part of that. When they bring in the McCabe's, the Alberts, and all these people, they're all going to be part of that. I don't think the medical examiner is going to be part of it, but they're going to be cross-examined. Why the hell did you say this wasn't a fight? And how do you know that? Come on, that's not fair. That's not right. There's no clean civilian witnesses who are going to accuse her of anything. There's no clean civilian witnesses who saw her do anything. There's nothing. So
Yeah.
when is this thing going to go over the cliff? Hopefully sooner than later, but unfortunately, at the pace this DA is moving, it's going to be for some time.
Yes, I hope so. I hope it's sooner than later and not the long time. But some people have been bringing up the car too. I mean, that must have been painful for her to see her Lexus there today that she's been paying for 2 years. She can't drive. Another thing she lost her career. She's lost a lot, and it's not fair to her, especially if she is innocent, which a lot of us believe based on evidence at this point.
When you say she can't drive, is that a condition of her release? Or she
apparently her license has been suspended or something? That's what commenters are saying. I don't know that for a fact, but I think I have heard that in the past too. So I don't know. It sucks.
Yeah.
She's saying, it says, it's a condition of her release. She confirmed that.
Yeah.
God. Okay.
Yeah, I know, Mark, right?
I mean, I would drive me nuts because, like if I couldn't
yeah.
drive anywhere, I would just lose my friggin' mind.
What's her
I know what you
bail?
mean.
How high is her bail?
I don't even know. Do you know, Mazza?
I don't even recall.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty high. I think it was.
She's on bond, yeah.
I can't. It might have been $100,000. I can't.
It was
remember.
more. I think it was even more than that. Because you remember she asked for it to be released back, and they wanted to look at her books and stuff.
Yeah.
Olivia's saying 100K. Maybe you're right.
Was it 100K? Yeah.
Someone else is saying 50
Karen
and
is
80.
free
I
on
don't know.
80,000 bail. Her bail had been set at 50 when she was first arrested. It had then been set to 100,000. So she was released on 80,000.
Okay.
But it was originally set at 100,000.
That's a lot. I mean, she's not a criminal. I mean, it's I mean, in the worst case scenario, it's a sort of a crime of passion of a domestic thing. She's not danger or risk or a bad person, obviously.
And like we talk about this myself on the show. We haven't even addressed some of the stuff we got recently. You know what I'm talking about, Mazza. But the amount of vitriol and just nastiness that people throw at Karen Reed too.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely sickening, and it's. I look at Karen and I'm just like, you mean, how can you not relate her to a just a woman that on a great level in your life, whether that's from any level of friend, family, spouse, cousin, niece, daughter, sister, how she just seems like a genuine person to me. And that's what I've always been captivated by her. I'm like, there's just no way, I just don't see it. This would be the biggest deception of all time. And to vouch for myself, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but I'm a very great judge of character, and I always have been, in my personal opinion. And I'm not very easily fooled when it comes to people's motives and abilities. And it's just, I feel like I'm very, very strong at that. And I just look at her and I'm like, no, she didn't do anything. There's no chance. I don't even believe she accidentally backed up into him and it was involuntary. I don't even believe that. I don't, because you look at the excessive window dressing that they had to put into this to try to cover it up, and like even the Lexus being there today was such ridiculous theatrics in my particular opinion. It was just ridiculous and it was unnecessary, and I don't understand why they felt the need for the jury to see that, other than the fact that they were trying to dress up the scene of the crime or alleged crime to try to win the jury over. I just don't know what the motivation was there or thought process.
I guess I want to ask you both just one last question tonight. Have you noticed any? I noticed it tonight at dinner with family who maybe haven't been paying attention and following it like we have, asking me about it. But also even on Facebook tonight, I've been noticing people who haven't been following the case asking about it and having opinions on it. Both, coming to different conclusions. But it seems like there's more average, regular people who haven't been following this, who are tuning in and coming to the conclusion that we are, that she's innocent. Have you noticed that lately?
Yes, I have. I absolutely have. I have friends that now have like Jackson Yannetti avatars and such on their pages that haven't been necessarily following this. But I think it's kind of like relatable to sports or even movies. When a movie comes out in a movie theater, people are more pumped up for whatever movie that is than they would be normally. And with sports, more people are watching like the Super Bowls. You know, everyone watches the Super Bowl.
The
With
like the
Amber Heard.
bandwagon. It's
Yeah,
like the
it's
bandwagon
exactly.
effect.
Yeah, with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, like nobody was really too involved with their affairs, and then once it hit court and it was televised and on internet streaming services such as YouTube, everyone was following it day in and day out. I think that's what's happening now is we're now kind of in that playoffs championship mode, movie being released to the movie theater mode, where everyone, no one cares about Jurassic Park, but when Jurassic World hit the theater, I couldn't even buy tickets the weekend it came out because things just get more popular when it's peak time, and this is the peak time now. So now really what's happening is you have the dedicateds like ourselves that are involved, but now like we'd be quote unquote season ticket holders. And then you have all the people that are now just there for the big ticket show, which is the trial. And now the more casual people or people that knew less about it are starting to find out about it, get involved and follow along. And that's exactly what I relate it to. This is the big show now.
I mean, I talk to lawyers about it casually out here and just give them the Reader's Digest version and say, look at this, look at that, go, it's interesting. And a few have, taken an interest. I mean, it's fascinating subject matter, and maybe we're all weirdos in tinfoil hats. I don't know, but the kind of people I associate with that I like to think are intelligent lawyers who actually do things in a courtroom, as opposed to she who, shall not be named, who has a lot to say. They all, to a man and woman, are like, what is happening? And again, we all look at it, feel terrible for Karen Reed, but we all look at it and say, what is this DA's office doing? And then when I add the part, well, apparently they're being investigated on some level, or whether it's the cops, the DA, both. And it's insanity. It truly is. But yeah, no, I think a lot of people are talking about it. As I told you, it is national news. It does make the New York Post. It does make, the Fox News, CNNs, those kinds of websites and whatnot. So it's definitely getting out there, and that's just going to make the fall bigger for the bad actors. I mean, look, this is going to be interesting like 3 months from now, or whenever it is, when, the aftermath, the autopsy of the case, let's assume she's home free. And we talked about this before too. She may have every intention on suing somebody and somebody's, and getting a lot of civil discovery and a lot of FOIL requests and a lot of stuff that, she may want to do. And I think we all hope she does. And God knows what the feds are going to do and whatnot. And, this will be interesting long after she walks out acquitted.
I will say this too. I'm just going to add this extra point. I just had this thoughts while I was listening to Mark and thinking about thoughts I had recently made. And that's this. I don't think this story is even peaked yet. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I think the moment that this story is going to hit an explosive nuclear pitch is going to be the moment that she's declared not guilty. And it's going to do this not because she's declared not guilty, because you have media that have been following this for a long time now under the guise that she's an alleged murderer. And when that comes out that she's not guilty, it's going to drop like a bomb. And basically there's going to be the big question is going to start to be asked now. Okay, Karen Reed didn't do it. She's been cleared. Who did
it? Yeah,
and
who
that's
did
when
it?
the real
Who covered it up?
Right. That's when the real sagas, because it's just us within our movement that are talking about this at a deep rooted level. The media right now, they're just covering at a generalized newsworthy level, with a lot of reporters starting to buy in as we go. But when she's declared not guilty, this is when it turns into an unsolved mystery now, just like with Robert Stack back in the 80s and 90s. Now this is an unsolved mystery. Okay, now these people in the national spotlight are going to say, national media are going to say, okay, well, she's not guilty, so now who is? And this thing's gonna absolutely explode one day. And as big as it's getting and as big as it's been, this is going to get even bigger, and this is going to be a story that's going to be covered for years to come, and A&E biographies and Court TV documentaries and True TV and Netflix, all these things.
Yeah.
This is going to be a story for a long time, and it's going to be this is going to be an all-time story that in your lifetime you're going to say this is right up there with some of them.
That's when I could take all the phone calls and listen to everyone's theories. When she's innocent, when she's found innocent, then we can hear every single outlandish theory from everybody, because her life isn't in the balance. Like right now, I don't want to hear any crazy theories, but once she's innocent, we can hear every theory, right, Mazza?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to her being declared not guilty, because we're all just, we're all here because we're not only just caught up in the story, but we're passionately out to see her declared innocent. And if for any reason that she is declared guilty, if they ever thought that the protests that they saw before had a lot of people with signs and people in large groups, just you wait, because we're going to be picketing even harder and protesting even harder. And there's going to be some letters written petitioning this for sure, as we've done in the past when certain things have come down on this movement. So we're here, and we're all here for the long run. They tried to scare us off 5 months ago when they sent Turtle Boy to prison, and that was their best shot that they sent at this so far. And look at all the people that this movement has not backed down. It's multiplied since then. So we ain't got no quit, as the great Alan Jackson once said.
These people are so dumb that they thought arresting him would put the clamps on the. I mean, talk about failing to read the room by what that would do. If you didn't think that was going to just make it get worse, and then not play a game of chess and think a few moves ahead and say, well, what happens when that guy gets out of jail and has access to a computer again?
Yeah, right.
I mean, what did they think?
What did they do? They doubled or tripled his viewers. His viewership went up even. It was already up, but now it's even up more since he got out of prison.
No, they,
and the same thing with the Canton Nine. I mean, they've been holding this over their head for so long, but you know what? It just showed more people that they're out to showing up to Katie Smith's house. There's so many of us. Myself, I've been bullied. They threatened me through third parties over and over and over again. We've talked about this. That did not work. That made more of us pissed off. That's all it did. It pissed us
100%.
off.
I leveled up my involvement in this thing online so much. I literally called your show the day he got arrested, and I just went on a rant / motivational speech and just spoke to everyone. I remember saying, I'm like, everyone just stay in the fight. Do not back down. Do not be scared off by this. It was a momentum shift, because we were won through Turtle Boy essentially, and then we had to kind of reestablish ourselves, and we did as a movement. We found a way to kind of continue forward and march on, and that was the definite, the bend but don't break mentality that this movement showed. And I respect every one of us here that is tuning in or doing anything at any level in this movement to support Karen Read, support Turtle Boy, and just stay in the fight, because they tried to scare us off. Evil prevails when good people do nothing, and everyone that's still involved in this right now, tuning into the show, you have chosen to be a good person that's doing something. And for all of us, it doesn't matter what your level of involvement is, high, low, or indifferent. You matter. You being here matters. Your support for them matters, and everything you do matters. And we're all grateful for you guys. And you guys are everyone here is awesome. And that's all I got to say to everybody. God bless all of you.
God bless you. We had made so many new friends too, like so many more. It's just a great thing that's happened here. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The Morrissey nightmare. Wouldn't it be something if Karen Read and Carney get acquitted or a case is dismissed like within a week of each other or something?
That was the next question I was going to ask you, because that was the final question I want to ask you tonight.
Sure.
Because that question just came up, we put it on the screen. If Karen Read if she wins her case, what happens to Turtle Boy, you think?
Nothing. I mean, they're totally different. I mean, he has. I mean, does he still have that witness tampering one too?
Yes.
That's probably unconstitutional. I mean, for a lot of reasons, which at 12 o'clock is probably a discussion for another day. Other than to say, when you're acting in a journalistic capacity, you're allowed to, even if you want to define it as be obnoxious, that doesn't necessarily translate to witness tampering. And then this other case that's going on with the ex-girlfriend or whatever, is one of the most disgusting prosecutions. I've dealt with cases like this, false allegations of rape, which again is another war story for another day, but very similar. The witness in that case is so not credible. It's so obvious. And I know there's lots of back and forth and nonsense online.
She called me, Mark. She called me homeless the other night.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that was pretty
I-
wild. Yeah, yeah.
I've never been doing so good in my life. I
This
live
is-
in a better place than I grew
admit
up
I
in.
tuned into that for a few minutes because I saw that someone tipped me off that they were on. I'm like, let me just tune into this for a few minutes, and I happened to just
Oh,
catch the
she's
rant on you.
awful.
Can you
Oh, yeah.
imagine bringing a criminal case
Oh.
and she's the star witness? I mean,
Yeah, just
sad. I mean, look,
trash, trash.
she had a hard life and all that, but that's not a reason to do, to lie and do things like that. So the reality is there's no chance in hell he's going to get convicted of anything either.
Yeah, I hope not. I
They're
really
both
hope not.
I agree with Mark. I agree with you. Yeah, I don't think he's going to get convicted for this. This is all, these are all things that they're trying to tie everybody up with, like the Canton Nine. If they were going to do anything to the Canton Nine, they would have ruled on it. They would have
Right.
fast tracked it, and they would have shut them down immediately. But what it is it's just basically what I
Silence.
call they say in security, the security industry is deterrence, which is basically like when someone has a sign that says ADT, but they really don't have ADT security, it
Yep.
just deters people from wanting to break into someone's home. And that's what they're doing with this, is just basically like, well, we're still deciding it. So everyone else says, well, we can't go outside a certain pizza place because we might get charged with witness intimidation. But it's all just a placeholder to basically just scare everybody off. And what's going to happen is once this case is all over, at some point they'll just rule on it, and it will just be, charges are dropped, and it's whatever.
Well, when these cases get dismissed too, I mean, I don't care what his political background is, and I understand Massachusetts hack politics is. I mean, I'm from there. I get it. I know how it works. I mean, the whole patronage mill and all of that is wonderful. But when these cases get exposed for what they are, I would think that it's time for Morrissey to go on a boat ride with Berkowitz, drink some beer.
Time to retire, buddy. You've done 30 plus years in office. It's time to go.
No, they need to cleanse the Norfolk DA's office. I mean, they need to fumigate and cleanse and get someone
Remove
in there.
everybody. Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, anyone who is like remotely
Connected.
touched this thing needs to go. I mean, you got to settle all family business on day one. Just, rip the Band-Aid off, out you go, and find someone who takes the job of being prosecutor seriously and honorably, because it doesn't look like these people do.
Let's hope so. I can't wait till that next election. If he decides to run again, I don't think he will, but I'd like to see him out before then. I want to thank you both so much. It's past midnight. We've been going all night.
Gee, it's midnight. I didn't realize what time it is.
Yeah, we still got 1,300 people listening right now too.
I thought it was like 11 o'clock. I haven't looked at the clock in a long
Yeah.
time. I get so locked in on this stuff. Yeah, it would be like 4 a.m. I'm like, wait, it's 4
I
in the
know.
morning?
We gotta go. I want to thank everyone for listening tonight. Thank you to our awesome guest, Mazza Media, and criminal defense attorney Mark Bederow. Tell us quickly where people can find you and look you up right now.
Twitter, X, whatever it's called, just Bederow Law, BEDEROW Law, and that's the best place.
Awesome. And Mazza Media.
Mazza Media on X. Yep, and then Mazza Media on YouTube as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Great catching up with you, Mark.
Thanks. Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
See you soon. Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. And this is Mike Crawford. I'm just going to read off some Venmos and thank everyone. I want to thank MJ, our moderator, for helping in the chat, keeping everything civil there. I saw we had a couple trolls tonight, which was fun. But they didn't bother us. When you have that many people there, it doesn't bother you. But I want to thank everyone. We had so many super chats come in. I couldn't even read them all or Aaron, I want to thank you. Dreamer, Thinker, Thomas, all these Auntie Bev's Flask. Some guy with cancer. I hope you're dealing with that. I hope everything's going to be all right. Thomas Nikolic, Amy Gasilic. I want to thank you so much. Leah Baker. I want to know, is it Leah or Leah? Because you contribute a lot, and I got to make sure I'm saying your name right. Thank you so much. I want to thank Dag Nabbit, Also a regular listener contributor. Thank you so much, Dag Nabbit. I want to thank Gene Leffer. Some guy with cancer again. Free Karen Reed 2024. Thank you so much for the $10 donation. Janice Lowe. Little Boston. Ooh, that's Gene from Dorchester. I'm sorry I had to hang up on you. You had too much feedback. I don't know what's going on with your phones. Sometimes when you call, I get that. It feels like you're listening to the show maybe on a computer or somewhere else. We'll get that worked out, Gene. I love your calls. I want to thank all these people who donated tonight. Suzanne was another one. Leah M. Maureen Coakley. She's another longtime listener, contributor. Thank you so much. Jen Altman tonight. Thank you so much. Monica, thank you. Bobby M. Thank you for contributing tonight. Mike. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jay Torres. This is unbelievable. I'm trying to get through these. This one here, for Fox's sake. Thank you so much. And I know we had some on the Venmo and maybe the Cash App. I'm just going to read those off very quickly. I got an early morning tomorrow too. I want to thank Caroline. She sent $10. She said, for great shows this week, Mike. Very informative. Thank you so much, Caroline. Lisa C. She said, thank you, Mike. I love your stream. She gave us $10. We got $10 on behalf of Sammy for the Young Jerks. I think that was last night, actually. Yes, it was. Good. So I think we got all through the Cash App. I'm just going to look at the Venmos very quickly. You could tell I got a little allergies. That's why I've been hitting the mute button a little more. Annette sent us $10. She said, Saraf was asked about the leaf blower. Pay attention to that leaf blower. How was it used? All of a sudden, battery was charged. Wow, that is a great point, Annette. She also sent another donation. She said, Mike, you're great. Say hi to Maz Media. Mark is the best. If Karen Reed never had that crack, they would have never framed her. Why didn't the defense put those pics in discovery ahead of time? All right, I think that's it on the Venmo tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, supporting, donating, liking, subscribing. It's now midnight, over midnight. What is it? 12:12. Make a wish. We still got 1,100 people just watching me read off Venmo donations. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm not sure when we'll be back, but we'll be streaming Monday morning. And who knows? I think I might do a show Saturday or Sunday. We'll see. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Please like and subscribe on the way out if you haven't subscribed, but definitely like this video. We had a huge amount. I think it was over 1,300 on last night's stream. Was like a record for us. So let's try to top that tonight. See if we can get to like 2,000 likes. I asked for 1,000 and you guys did it last night. So I'm going to throw out 2,000. I also want to say that we're almost at 10,000 subs on YouTube. I think it's really like 8,800 or something like that, or 8,700. I don't know what it is, something like that. We're almost about to cross over 9, but I say we're almost at 10 because we've been adding so many new subs. I know we'll be at 10,000 before we know it. So thank you so much. If you haven't subbed, please do so. I would like to get to that 10,000 as soon as possible. It'd be a nice little celebration we'll have here. Paula just sent $15. She says, call John Como next time. He's a big fan. Thank you, Mike. I would love to call John. John is a great guest. He's been on the show many times. Most recently, the most recent Canton Select Board election. He and I were up all night. That was fun, actually. I do owe John a call. So maybe we'll get John. Maybe John will come on this weekend. We'll see. You guys like John.